Damian Lillard is not a Toronto Raptor. Damian Lillard is a Milwaukee Buck. The East is absolutely a wrap, and we're here to talk about what it means for the Toronto Raptors. If you're new around here, my name is Robert. This is Pensari Basketball. Make sure to hit like, subscribe. This is a call-in show. Before we hit that intro, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and if you got something to say, call. All right? Now let's get that intro out of the way. Man, I do love that intro. All right. Damian Lillard. I did an Instagram poll. What do y'all want to talk about tonight? Because I wanted to do a live before season's getting pretty close. We haven't been really doing a lot of lives as I've been doing a lot of my film stuff. And overwhelming majority voted Damian Lillard, presumably yesterday when Damian Lillard was still a Portland Trailblazer, still on the market and still potentially Toronto bound. Were the Raptors willing to give up Grady Dick? I don't think so. Were the Raptors shopping Scotty Barnes? I know they were not. But Damian Lillard is not a Toronto Raptor. Dame goes to Milwaukee to join forces with Giannis Antetokounmpo. We're going to talk about that trade. We're going to talk about who won that trade. Cheat sheet. The Bucks won that trade in a landslide. We're going to talk about what happens with Jrue Holiday, and certainly we're going to talk about what happens with the Toronto Raptors from here because, if you've been keeping up with Raptors social, they've been pushing this whole Scotty is kind of our guy thing pretty hard. Look, I've lived through quite a few iterations of the Toronto Raptors. They market their guy as the guy, and it's very obvious who the guy is right now that the Toronto Raptors are building around for 2 summers in a row. But there's another guy in Toronto who is on the verge of a potentially max contract, and he's a hell of a player as well. And we got to talk about him. We got to talk about Pascal Siakam and what all of this means for him, because as it currently stands, in my opinion, he's probably the best player available for a team looking to jump up into contention. Could that team be Miami now that they've missed out on Damian Lillard? Could that be somebody else? We'll see. We're going to take some of your calls for sure. Let's say it's 11:19 right now. We're going to start taking calls around 11:30. I hope Vince is able to call in. I pushed this show off because he said he had to tuck in his son to sleep. So I was like, Vince, you got to call in. We got to get Vince, the music guy, in. And towards the end of the show, perhaps if one of you guys ask how my premiere went for our private screening for the film, I'll let you know about that too. Okay, first of all, breaking down this Damian Lillard trade. So the Portland Trailblazers get off of Damian Lillard. Well, not get off of. They lose the best player in franchise history, Damian Lillard, who was, as recently as last year, in my opinion, an MVP candidate. He had played a hell of a season last year, and anyone waiting for a decline on him, do not hold your breath. This is a consummate professional guy who started his career pretty late. He doesn't have a crazy ton of miles. He doesn't have a lot of long playoff runs into him. I think, he's going to age like fine wine. This is a guy who I could see very easily still dominating into his 35th birthday season. After that, all bets are off. But you know what? If you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you're giving yourself a 2-year window to win championships. And as far as Damian Lillard is concerned, Giannis Antetokounmpo is exactly the type of player that you want to put with Damian Lillard. So congrats to the Milwaukee Bucks. Is it too early to say, with a rookie head coach like Adrian Griffin, that they are championship favorites? I think it might be too early to say that, but certainly it would not be ridiculous to say they're a lot closer today than they were yesterday to winning their second championship with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Brooke Lopez, honestly, he's old. he's he's my age. So he's getting up there, and big man, it could just, we saw with Marcus Gasol, it could just be boom, just fell off a cliff. But he's still always going to be a great defender. And again, with Chris Middleton still there, aging out. Giannis Antetokounmpo, getting up there now, closer to 30 than he is to 25. This is a very short window with this core, right? And they're going to have to retool around this core. They've given up 2 pick swaps, and I believe a 2029, if I'm not mistaken, the 2029 pick came from them as well. So, if this works out, great. It's probably going to result in a championship. If Dame plays ball, this is not his desired destination for sure. But, I think that in terms of a roster fit, I mean, you talk about top 6, top 7 players in the league. Giannis is that, and now he has the best player he's ever played with in his life in Damian Lillard. It just works, it works. Like last year under Bud, I mean, they ran Giannis what, 36, 37, 38% usage. I mean, that's ridiculous, and it's not a recipe for success. He's not, he's dominant, but he's not that great a playmaker. And now with Damian Lillard, you can split that. Makes the Milwaukee Bucks very difficult. For the Raptors, now this is, I mean, you're sitting in the Eastern Conference. Now let's talk about this before we talk about the Raptors. Let's talk about this from the Portland Trail Blazers side. They get DeAndre Ayton, and they get picks, and they get Jrue Holiday. Now, I like Jrue Holiday a lot. I actually think the gap between Jrue Holiday and Damian Lillard is not nearly as huge as maybe an average fan thinks, but it is enormous. It's big enough, right? And Jrue is 33 years old. He's got 2 years left on his deal, year plus a player option. He's commanding, I think, 27% of the cap. Probably not going to be worth it as soon as next year. Also a guy, who's had some injury issues, and again, doesn't really fit what the Blazers are doing. Reports are they're looking to sort of jettison him off to a third team. So we'll see what they get for him, but he certainly does not fit the rebuild. It's kind of weird, right? For the Blazers, right? You give up your best player in franchise history. Granted, he wanted out. Granted, he had kind of tanked his own trade value by making a very short list of teams that he was willing to go to. And, certainly had he not done that, I'm sure they would have been able to command a little bit more for him because they would have had more offers, more suitable offers. But I don't really like DeAndre Ayton. I think he's overpaid. He's got 3 years, nearly $100 million left on his deal. I don't really care much for the young assets that he got. Those pick swaps could be valuable if Dame or Giannis, get hurt, or Dame retires or something like that. I mean, again, like if it doesn't work out in Milwaukee, I mean, those pick swaps are going to look really silly, right? If someone correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the pick swaps are Milwaukee's pick swaps. So I'm not really enthralled with anything the Blazers got back. To me, the grade on the Blazers is pending based on what they get for Jrue Holiday. If they're keeping Jrue Holiday, that's a completely, weird fit for me with Scoot Henderson. But I don't think that they will. I think there will be a market for him. I wonder if that market, in fact, is Miami. I mean, that could be interesting, right? What would it take, right? Miami, maybe they're not thrilled with Kyle Lowry. They've lost Gabe Vincent. Miami Heat are worse. Regardless of how you look at this, the biggest losers in this whole thing are the Miami Heat, because when you're looking at their season preview, everyone already had Dame pegged in for Miami. It was like, it's going to happen, and we're just waiting for it to happen. Okay, now it hasn't happened. And the Miami Heat are a year older and a lot less deep, in my opinion. They lose Gabe Vincent. Unless Tyler Hero has like some sort of massive jump in him, and I'm not really seeing it, I'm not really sure where they go from here, right? Jimmy Butler getting older, Kyle Lowry getting older. So I think the Miami Heat probably have to do something, and that's sort of where I'm going to spin this back to. Okay, well, let's look at the third team in this trade. The Phoenix Suns. I mean, honestly, maybe I'm just abnormally low on DeAndre Ayton, but you know who I'm lower on than I am on DeAndre Ayton? Yusuf Nurkic. What are they doing, man? Like, you don't need that, man. I'm not really sure. I get it. I understand they sort of parsed their roster out to get Bradley Beal and they wanted to get some depth back, but I don't think they've really got much back for it. Maybe DeAndre Ayton's market was just that bad. Maybe you should have just played it out. I can't imagine you get a worse deal than this. So, not really enthralled from the Sun side of this trade. So I think, to me, Milwaukee is the clear winner in this trade, and we will see what happens with the Blazers from here. Now, to the Toronto Raptors side of this, well, congratulations. You are now the team that holds, in my opinion, the best player in the league that is currently being dangled on the trade market now that Damian Lillard is off. I mean, we can split hairs over James Harden versus Pascal Siakam, and we can say definitely James Harden is a more talented player, more dynamic player, probably the player with the more cachet and name market. But, in terms of just raw trade value, no baggage, right? Pascal Siakam's younger. I think you can make a case Siakam's the best asset left on the market. And there are a lot of teams that, might be looking at this Milwaukee thing thinking, maybe we need some reinforcements. Um, this has the potential for a domino effect, right? You don't know how many teams were involved in the bidding for Damian Lillard, right? Reports are Miami, reports are certainly Toronto was involved. But, now you do have this guy that, I mean, he's kind of a clunky fit, right? And I made a note the other day on Pensar Basketball Instagram, and I'm going to make it here too, just so everyone is kind of clear where I'm approaching this season from. I spent an undue amount of time last year talking to, at, or whatever content creators, media, etc., about Scotty Barnes, right? And they're like, "Oh, you can't talk about Scotty this way. You can't talk about Scotty that way." I'm not doing that this year. I'm just being straight up with you. I'm not going to do that this year. Y'all do you. Just do you. I don't care. I really don't. I mean, you want to talk smack, you want to say he's not this, he's not that, he's not going to be this. Talk whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the Toronto Raptors believe in him until further notice. Okay. They believed in him since they drafted him. I believe in him until further notice. I mean, that'll be forever. So it just doesn't matter. It's really brain dead. It gets me worked up. It's kind of stupid. It doesn't change anything. And I hope that the media, now not under the spell of Nick Nurse and Fred VanVleet, can give Scotty a bit of a fair shake. I do understand there's a bit of an anchoring bias where, you have an opinion about someone, it forms pretty early, and then, everything is just like every rough game he has. See, I told you he wasn't worth holding out on Dame or KD for. Well, they did. Okay. So you can take that up with Masai and Bobby the next time you have a press conference with them. But from my perspective on this, I think, it's time to evolve as a content creator beyond, hurling eggs at people who talk bad about Scotty Barnes. He's fine. He's fine. His people are fine. He's gonna be fine. And, someone said on a live stream today, he said he's 6'11". I don't know about that. I don't even know if he's 6'10" or 6'9", but if he says he's 6'11", certainly maybe he had a late growth spurt. That's great. That's awesome. He's been killing it in the summer workouts. I like the jump shot. It's looked a lot smoother. Let's talk about um, Pascal Siakam. Now, I haven't been super keeping up to date with the rumor mill because it is quite circular and quite unreliable, and I know it's a lot of spin. But I would be interested to know what a Pascal Siakam to Miami trade would look like. I'd be really curious about that. I don't know if the Toronto Raptors necessarily would want to pair Scotty, Grady, OG, etc. with Tyler Hero. Nor do I know how I feel about Tyler Hero long term, but I do know that he's on a longer term contract and that he's a little bit younger. So that might be worth considering. The complication for the Toronto Raptors is pretty simple. Jakob Poeltl and Dennis Schroeder can't go anywhere. And quite frankly, that does complicate a lot. Leaves basically OG, Thaddeus Young, Otto Porter, Chris Boucher, Precious Achua, Gary Trent, Pascal Siakam. Those are pretty much the people that can come out. I think we can all pretty much agree that this roster, as constructed, doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. So I am curious to know what you guys think about that. And with that, let's open it up to some calls and hopefully I can get some of your takes. The link is in the description below. We'll try to keep this live going until about 12:30. I don't want to go crazy long. I don't know. These lives take stamina, man. I don't know how I used to do 7, 8 hour lives, but we'll try to keep lives this year probably a little under 2 hours. I'm just going to keep a mental note in my head that people do not have more than that much amount of time. Okay, first caller, Marwan. Is it Marwan?
Yeah, it is. How's it going, Rob?
Hey, it's going good. How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Honestly, I'm a big fan. I start off by saying I'm a big fan. I've always been watching you. I think you got like the best Raptors content out there, so I just want to put that out there.
Appreciate it, man. There's been
Um,
like no Raptors content for the last month, but I appreciate
it's been
y'all
so
sticking with
dry.
me.
It's been so dry without you, man.
Appreciate it, man. What's going on?
I just kind of wanted to say like a point that I noticed today. I was watching this Darko interview, and it's like this 12-year-old, the 12-year-old that's interviewing, which is great for him. I mean, that's kudos to him. But throughout the interview, there was a question about Pascal. Not Pascal. There was a question about kind of who would kind of be taking the shots in the team and how the shot distribution would be like, and who would kind of be our clutch guy in the games. And it's weird how Darko completely dismisses Pascal throughout the whole response of the question and goes, Scotty, Scotty, Scotty. And I think throughout the whole postseason, like kind of throughout the whole postseason and all the interviews that he's done, it's so weird to me that there's been no mention of Pascal when he's supposed to be the star of your team. So I think Darko might actually know something that we don't.
I mean, do we not know? Do we not know? I mean, Pascal is being shopped, man. Like, I mean, there's no secret about it. This is not a great long-term fit. Scotty and Pascal, neither are they just kind of get in the way. I mean, this has always been the writing's always been on the wall about this, right? So if you believe in Scotty long term, and certainly the jury's still out on what type of star he can be. You know, some people think it's going to be a Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic type of thing. Some people think it's going to be a Lamar Odom type of thing. Some people think it's somewhere in the middle. But if you believe in that upside, then it's probably not going to happen for a few years, and more than likely you're going to need some shooters around him, right? You're going to need some shooters. You're going to need people who move really well without the basketball. And honestly, have you seen Pascal Siakam's clutch percentages over the last 3 years? I don't think. If you have, I don't think I don't think it's anything wrong with not really talking too much about Pascal Siakam, as a clutch performer. He hasn't
Right.
been.
And but the issue that I have is like realistically speaking, I mean, what's the market? I mean, you've got Atlanta that have already made an offer at the beginning of the summer. The reports that the offer was, what was it, Adrian Griffin and DeAndre Hunter and some picks, and that they were kind of dangling with Kobe Buffkin about not being able to trade him. But I mean, realistically speaking, is that really an offer that we would take for Pascal? Like, is are we so desperate to sell him at this point just because the fit might not be perfect that we give him away and dangle him because
It's
of
not
like,
really giving him away per se. It's more like hedging your bet, right? Because the way I see it is, the worst case scenario, like the worst way that this can go is you lose him for nothing next off season because you're not willing to pay him a max contract, or he's not willing to sign one because you dangled him all summer. It's the same thing that happened with Jaylen Brown. Sometimes you have to overpay guys to bridge, to heal the wound, right? Um, it's a really strange thing, right? He's coming off a season where I don't think he was bad at all. He wasn't great. He wasn't bad. I don't think he's a top 20 guy. He started out very firmly in the top 15 conversation, tapered off. Season did not end well. I think with guys where the season doesn't end well, it really does hurt their trade value quite a bit, especially when the season ends like in the play-in, the way that it did for the Raptors. And it's just like if you watch the playing game, which I'm sure you did, who
I watched
felt
it
like
live actually.
you watched it live,
I was at the game,
and
yeah.
who felt like the best player on the court to you?
Honestly, it was a long time ago, so I'm trying to forget about everything about that night because I drove up like 4 hours to watch the game. and it was very, very sad ride back. So I've honestly left that all behind me. So I'm not actually sure.
Okay. Did it feel like Pascal Siakam though?
I don't think so, but I'm not
Exactly.
entirely
So,
sure.
I mean, you had home court advantage in the play-in, and it's a sour note to end the season, right? So that's
Right.
what I'm saying. Like, it's just it's not the greatest way if you're the Raptors. You're hoping to trade this guy. I mean, it kind of worked in your favor, maybe for extensions, like with Jakob Poeltl. Maybe it kind of helped you a little bit, but
Right.
not by much. But yeah, with Siakam, maybe the market around the league is not nearly as strong. He's not necessarily the same level of household name that a guy like Damian Lillard has, that extra premium cachet, but he's still a hell of a player. And I think that he could help a lot of teams. I wonder if teams might be looking at him the same way I'm looking at him, saying, well, he's not a number one and he hasn't been number two for a while. I wonder how he would
Hmm.
do in that situation, right? So I don't know, but I think Miami could use him. I think for the Raptors' sake, you would hope that a couple of teams now that their eyes can sort of reset off of Damian Lillard could take a really hard look around the market and say, hey, if we need a star, who's the best one available right now? And
Hmm.
if you don't want to deal with James Harden drama, which I think is overstated personally, but I mean, if you don't want to, and I'm sure a lot of GMs don't, and you don't want to deal with a guy who's in his mid 30s making a ton of money, I think Pascal Siakam is probably your best bet to have that type of player. Um, maybe it's not helping anybody that he's kind of saying like I'm not going to resign anywhere either, too, right? Like that
Right.
has to be considered. And to your earlier point, like how desperate are we? I love AJ Griffin. I mean, if you're watching these lives, you know how I feel
Yeah,
about that dude.
he's great. Yeah.
Like he's awesome. So I mean, you lose Siakam for nothing next offseason, or you extend him to a super max or whatever if he somehow lucks out on all NBA. I mean, I
Hmm.
think that outcome is much worse than having AJ Griffin, personally.
I'm trying to I'm like I kind of disagree with you about the Miami fit because I feel like if anything, the Miami backcourt depth isn't great right now as opposed to the front court. I mean, you've got Jimmy and you've got Bam. So I feel like if anything, the whole premise around them like being
You
around the
consider you
Dame,
consider you consider Jimmy Butler a front court player, right?
I would say, yeah, I would say the three.
But he's kind of like he's I don't want to say he's like LeBron, but he's operated as a point forward for them for a while, right?
Right.
So in a way, I mean, I'm not suggesting they would manage to keep Tyler Hero in this situation ever, but
Hmm.
if you could pair Bam, Jimmy, and Pascal, I don't understand how that's worse than what you have right now. I mean, it might be a slightly awkward fit, but I don't think they necessarily get in each other's way. I think the only problem would be that none of them are great shooters.
Yeah.
So it's like it's yeah, I don't know. I'm personally I'm open to rolling the dice with Siakam. I wouldn't love it, but I think it could work better than some people think it could.
Yeah.
Especially if he can find his touch from three. I think he and Scotty can work. I think that their timelines are so far apart. And you got a 22-year-old and a guy who's nearly 30.
Right.
It's like
I
you gotta think windows, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why for me, at least for me personally speaking, the whole idea of the trade was the most disappointing for me, not necessarily because we didn't get Dame, but it's because Miami wasn't involved. I really thought we should have had a shot with Tyler Herro, personally speaking. I thought he could have been great with the team. I think he also fits the timeline with OG, with Scotty, with the rest of the guys. Sure, you might argue that he doesn't really do more than what Trent already gives us as a player,
Oh, he's a
but
much better playmaker.
he's a much better playmaker. I think
He's
he's
a
got a bit
better
more size.
scorer.
He's a better scorer. Defensively, they're both kind of weak anyway, so I don't think you're giving up much there. But I think in terms of
He
Tyler Herro, I
makes a
think
lot
that
more money though. He
he
makes a
is.
lot more money than Gary though, and
But
is
then
like
you
a
also wouldn't
bigger.
have to worry. You wouldn't have to worry about the free agency situation next year if you maybe get rid of Gary in that trade. So I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a balancing act. I just thought Tyler could be really good for us in terms of a backcourt player that can score, and Scotty maybe kind of running the point and Harrow at the two. I think it could have really worked for us.
I think those guys could work too. I think the problem is that neither one of them can contain off the bounce. So you're really screwed there. I mean, you
Yeah.
still have that problem right now. There's literally nobody on this roster who's clamps other than OG. And maybe Dennis Schroeder has a little bit of juice as a point of attack defender, but there's going to be a lot of blow bys at the top of the key for the Raptors this season. Pascal's not helping with that.
Mhm.
And you couldn't like it's difficult to put that much on OG Anunoby, like here's top five guys. And I know that Scotty is a decent defender, and I know that Jakob Poeltl is a decent defender, but where they defend on the court is different than what you need. So really, right now, you need a Jrue Holiday.
Right.
Ironically,
I was just about to ask you about what you thought about potential Jrue Holiday trade.
for who though?
That's what I'm saying. I don't really. I really love the idea, but I just don't see how it materializes in any way. I don't see what on the roster we could give up that could perhaps A, entice Portland, and B, make sense for us as well.
Well, my initial thought was, send Gary to Portland.
But he
Um,
already, I think he's talked enough trash about them that there's no way they would take him back, kind of thing.
I think things can change pretty quickly on that front. I mean, they would be giving him a very different opportunity than the one he had with Dame Lillard. And his main gripe has never been with the city of Portland. His main gripe was that he wasn't given enough of an opportunity, and Dame and CJ are gone. So, I think that bridge is fine. Gary's a pro. Um, the problem here is, of course, that Jrue Holiday is 33 years old, makes a
Yeah.
ton of money, and it's like, what are you doing, right? At some point, I think the Raptors are just going to have to do something that they've been very unwilling to do for the last 5 years, which is just say, we are ready to give up a few seasons. And it's the timing is terrible. And it's not giving up as in like we're not going to develop, or we're not going to try, or we're not going to try to, be competitive. It's just give up any aspirations of contending at all, because
Right.
you're not there. Like this is I'm not going to go as far as to say this is relegating them to a play-in team. I think they could be a little bit better than that. But my gosh, the East is just it's
Stacked.
scary, right?
Yeah.
At the very top, like the top two teams, top three teams, really. I mean, we're talking Cleveland, right? We're talking Cleveland, we're talking Milwaukee, we're talking Boston. I mean, who is beating these three teams? It's certainly not the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah.
So those three teams, I think, specifically give me fits. If you're a first round team, I think, this is just going to be a really tough 5 game series, and you're out. Um, so yeah, you just need to grow, right? You need to grow, you need to develop, you need to have Grady Dick actually turn into something. It has to work. Christian Coloco, Precious Achua, these guys have to develop,
Hmm.
and Scotty Barnes has to take that next step. And I think that he might be a couple of years away from touching anything close to like that all NBA type of guy. I don't think it's going to happen next season, but it could happen in a few seasons. And at that point, you want to have all these blossoming pieces around him. So I think in any trade for Siakam, you want more of those.
Hmm.
You want more of those guys who are going to start peaking around when Scotty is ready to compete. And of course, this whole thing only hinges on Scotty and Grady and OG and guys like this actually taking that next step. And it's mainly Scotty. I hate to turn this. I mean, this channel is often accused of being very Scotty centric, but I mean, honestly, if he doesn't turn into what they think he's going to become, like this is going to be a very bad 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder, like, I think for me personally, I all attribute this, like, the mess that we're in and the play-in loss and everything we've had to go throughout these last 6 months. I
Mhm.
think for me, it all goes back to deadline day last season, where we traded for Jakob and we got rid of that first round pick and we didn't trade for Van Fleet and we let him walk for free. And even if the trade value for Fred was completely minuscule at that time, it would have been a lot better than what ended up happening, which is him signing the extension with Houston and going for free, and then us being stuck with no direction and not having a first round pick next season to even tank with.
I think right now, I mean, the thing that held up the Damian Lillard trade is the Raptors couldn't trade their future picks. I mean, you might have been able to get them if you could have dangled, a 2026 first or something like that.
Mm.
But the Raptors couldn't trade first round picks because their pick is sort of deadlocked. Are you guys hearing me okay, or am I too quiet? Am I a
I
little
can
too
hear
quiet?
you. I can hear you
Yeah.
fine, man.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I think it's a tough situation, but I do expect that the Raptors will be a slightly more competitive team. I mean, there's no incentive to tank this year. You don't have your
Yeah.
pick.
The
So
report I saw was that the main kind of dangling piece back and forth was OG, not the picks. And I think it was like what's that guy's name?
I
I don't
can't
remember who the
imagine
reporter
trading. I
was, but
can't imagine trading. Like if I'm just saying this, if the Blazers had an opportunity to get OG Anunoby and they opted for Jrue Holiday, like I'm very shocked.
that's what I'm saying. So I think the report that came out was that Toronto didn't want to include OG in the talks, which is
Right.
why it didn't materialize.
Yeah, I've heard all summer that OG and Scotty are going nowhere, and that everyone else is kind of like, we'll see. And I mean, to me, that's music to my ears. Those are my two favorite players on the team. Obviously, I don't want them to go anywhere. I think they fit beautifully together. I think OG can take another step. I realize that people in Toronto, even in Toronto media, sometimes it feels like they clown on him a little bit and they call him not durable or say he can't dribble or whatever. But I really do think this guy has something more. You know, I've seen it in spurts. I would like to see it for more than a week or a month or whatever, but I think he can do it, man. I think, I think it'll come together for him. And, behind OG and Scotty, maybe that's not enough to necessarily catapult you into contention, but I think you get enough pieces around that. It could work. So I would just like to see that. But I still like the Atlanta trade, man. I do.
I I just think in terms of value, it's not great. I mean, you're talking like you went on about like Pascal being obviously a great player. You would argue that even he would even be on the same caliber as Harden in terms of player value and asset.
He's
But
higher than Harden because he's
he,
younger and
because he's
he's
younger, of
got less
course.
drama and all that stuff. In my opinion, he
So
should be worth a little bit more than James Harden.
exactly, but I just feel like like it's because there's no competition on the market, or at least not reported competition on the market for Pascal right now. That I think we're kind of settling for this idea of DeAndre Hunter and AJ Griffin and some picks. I think realistically speaking, we should be expecting a much bigger package, but because of the
I
fact that
guess it just depends on what you think of AJ Griffin, right? I mean, if you're looking at him like, oh, he was the 16th overall pick, and I mean, I see him as a lottery talent, man.
mm,
Like to me, AJ Griffin, Grady Dick, it's splitting hairs. So you know what I mean? Like I would
right,
actually think AJ Griffin is a better prospect than Grady Dick, and I believe he's younger too. So
and
it's like you gotta look at it fairly, right? I
yeah,
mean, AJ probably is a sixth or fifth overall pick in his draft, ahead of Ben Mather and ahead of Shaden Sharp if he's not injured. He doesn't have that injury. He was
right,
really highly touted, right? He's a great player. And I think everything I saw from him last year tells me this is a blue chip prospect that you trade a franchise player for,
hmm
especially one that you don't want to keep. Not Damian Lillard, franchise player locked up for 3 years playing at an MVP level, but maybe like a guy like Pascal Siakam, maybe this is enough. And then if you can get sweeteners like Kobe Buffkin and picks, like I think you take it. Like I would have taken it months ago if that deal was on the table and the Raptors are just, sitting around waiting for something better to pop up. Like I think AJ Griffin could surprise a lot of people. And,
yeah.
maybe 3 weeks into the season he pops off and this trade isn't available. So
What
I
would you
wouldn't
do about
wait.
yeah? What would you do about DeAndre Hunter at that point? Because I know I've heard you on record saying that you're not really a huge fan. So would you then
That's an understatement. I don't like him at
yeah?
all.
So would you then flip him, or would you what would you do at that point? Because obviously we've got a lot of depth in that position as well.
Yeah, we do have a lot of depth at that position. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily even see him as a positive asset. If you can get a pick for him, I'd be surprised. There might be a team desperate enough to flip a bad contract for him. So maybe you take a bad contract at the guard position to just balance out your roster, and then they get DeAndre Hunter, and he fits a need of a 3-and-D wing who neither shoots threes nor defends
Nor
at a
defense.
high or a high enough level to command the money that he's making. He's not making an absurd amount of money. He's still young enough that someone could sell themselves on upside. And I never underestimate how much people fall in love with players at the draft cycle. He was a high lottery pick. I think those guys always retain a little bit more value, even in their early 20s, because there's always some GM out there who would be like, if I could just get that guy in my system, I could unlock everything. And you can't. You can't. I've watched enough of him at this point to know he's pretty mid as fuck. But yeah, I mean, whatever. Like I wouldn't want to keep him. And certainly I'd be happy to move him off to a third team. That'd be great.
So would you do a trade then if it was like DeAndre Hunter and AJ Griffin and then like a pick or two
Happily, I would take that trade.
without Kobe Buffkin?
Yeah, without Kobe, I wouldn't need it. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I started this bargaining out very high with Onyeka Okongwu, and then,
Right.
I got a call from a friend of mine who covers the Hawks, and he's just like, "I just got to tell you, they're not getting rid of Onyeka Okongwu. They wouldn't trade Onyeka for Pascal." And I'm just like, "Oh shit!" Like they know what they have in him. Okay,
Yeah.
moving on. Moving down to the next prospect down the list, and it's like it's AJ Griffin now. Maybe this is a Dyson Daniels thing with me, right? AJ, Dyson, these are young players that maybe haven't proved a lot yet, and I just have an absurd belief, and maybe I'll be wrong. 3 years from now, maybe they're just role players or fourth starters or whatever. But I mean, you cannot understate the fact that AJ Griffin has managed to become an average NBA player at the age of 19. That's not common at all.
Is
Like
he
there
still
are not a
19?
lot. He's 19 years old, man.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and he is like very much an average NBA player right now.
Right.
Like whatever you think the upside is, maybe, and again, growth curves are very hard to predict. He's been playing basketball his whole life. His dad's an NBA player, ex-NBA player, and a coach. So maybe he's just way further along in the skills development, and maybe his development curve is already way further along than the average 19-year-old, and that's why he's so good for his age. I don't know about that.
Hmm.
It's difficult with players, it's like people peak at different times. Their growth trajectory is really difficult to map, but I have seen a lot of growth from him from high school to college to last year, and I think his work ethic is incredible. I like him a lot. So yeah, I wouldn't lose any sleep if the Raptors got him. I'd be really happy.
Right. And on the AJ Griffin train, do you think that Adrian is ready for the challenge that he's got ahead of him in Milwaukee right now? I don't think he was expecting to like kind of have championship aspirations right off the bat like he is now.
Anytime you have Giannis Antetokounmpo on your team, you have championship aspirations right off the bat.
But I don't think
I
the
think this
pressure is
makes
on
it.
now, I would argue. Like because of that trade
The
and how
pressure
big the
was
trade was.
already on. I mean, the reason they made the trade is because the pressure was already on. Giannis was saying, like, if they don't put a team around me, blah, 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 that's pressure. So either way you split it, Adrian Griffin was going to play this season out with a lot of pressure. Either he was
Mhm.
going to have the pressure of convincing Giannis to stay, or now he's got the pressure of somehow managing to win a championship with this team in its first year. And by the way, don't get it twisted. This Kawhi thing doesn't happen very often. Most teams don't win the first time these two guys pair together. And I think that might be where the only downside for the Bucks is they don't have a long time to make this work. They really don't.
Yeah.
I felt like Chris Middleton aged every week last year. It really felt like he was aging before my eyes. He may not be ready to be the third guy. I don't know if Brook Lopez, how much he has in the tank to be the third guy. They got rid of Grayson Allen. They lose Jrue Holiday. I think Jrue Holiday is probably the most underrated player in the NBA. So yes, they got an upgrade. Yes, it's a very good fit. I don't think they'll win a championship next year, though. They could. They
Oh
certainly could,
wow.
but I don't think they're going to win a championship. They wouldn't be my favorites. No.
So who do you have as favorite then? Do you still have Denver repeat?
Denver. Denver
Oh yeah.
repeats.
I don't know.
Denver repeats, man.
After losing Bruce and a couple of the pieces, I don't know if Christian Braun can really fill that void yet.
I think Christian Brown is more than capable of doing that, and I think they're a development powerhouse, man. Their coaching staff is so incredible, like coaching guys up. They get every year there's like one or two guys off the end of their bench that just ascend. So it could be Denver. I don't think it's going to be Boston. I don't know. I mean, to me, yeah, I mean, maybe Phoenix is an outside shot. Like, I feel better about their chances now they got rid of DeAndre Ayton, to be honest.
But
But
replace him
yeah,
with
that's
who
a lot
though?
of talent.
Replace him with Nurkic. So I mean, I don't think it does much for their
They really
aspirations
didn't
anyway.
replace him. I mean, they replaced him with four guys, really. They
Yeah,
just
it's
filled
the
out their
depth.
roster with
It's the
some
depth.
guys. Anyways, Marvin, thanks a lot for calling in, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Cheers. Have a good one. All right. We got Vince in rare form. We got Vince and a wife beater. What's going on, man?
Yes, Guy, what's going on?
Not too much. We back on the lives, and Damian Lillard is in the East. How do you
It's
feel
a, it,
about that?
it's bittersweet. I was obviously hoping for him, but I think in order to get to where Portland wanted the price to be, we would have had to overpay a little bit. So I'm fine. I'm fine at the end of the day with
You don't think
like,
Pascal's worth more than Jrue Holiday? Because I do.
oh, I just don't think that Pascal was offered.
What?
Yeah, I don't think Pascal was offered. I think
Then what
they
do you think the
wanted.
conversation? What do you think the conversation was going like? Well, I mean, if OG is not offered and Scotty's not offered, who the hell do you think they were offering for Damian
Oh,
Lillard?
oh, I thought they were offering OG. Was that not the case?
I don't think so. I don't
No,
think so.
if they weren't
That
offering
would be.
OG or Pascal or Scotty, then they're never going to get there, right?
I don't. I think it was Pascal, man. But like, I mean, I see your point about OG. OG makes a lot more sense for their timeline and stuff. But I mean, like, he also makes a lot of sense for our timeline too. It's kind of like the weirdest thing where 29 teams want OG, and guess what? We're the 30th team that wants OG. Like, we need him. Like, we need him badly.
Oh man, I mean, I've always been of the mindset that I would rather keep OG Scotty together, and then add Dame to that instead of Pascal. But like everybody on the planet was like, well, if you get rid of Pascal, then why the hell are you getting Dame? So I just didn't think that anybody was
Because he's
actually
way
entertaining
better
that
than
notion.
him.
Oh,
Because he's way
100%.
better than him.
I mean, like I said, I was of the mindset that a Dame OG Scotty core was good enough to then make a few moves here and there to flesh out the rest. I would have loved that. But Pascal, yeah, I don't think Pascal has. If he was indeed offered, that's stupid of them not to take that offer, right? That was like, I mean,
They got
get,
Ayton, right? I mean, that's the younger player that they might have been after. They had a positional need at center. Nurkic was not working.
but they still could have done that. You could still weave Phoenix into the deal, right?
That's true.
They still could have done it. Like they could have been the exact same player as Milwaukee, right? And still done the like. I didn't. I only.
So,
I was kind of.
but there is a sweetener here because Milwaukee gave up picks. We didn't have
Yeah, there
picks
were.
to give up. So, I mean, the gap between Jrue and Pascal is not 3 picks. I'll tell
Right.
you that much right now. Like there's a gap. In my opinion, there's a gap where I think Pascal's the better player because he's younger. But Jrue Holiday has the extra year. That could be considered a good thing because Pascal is not agreeing to stay anywhere, especially not Portland, right?
Oh, is he got an extra year?
He has a player option, which he will almost certainly pick up. It's like $37 million. So,
I
yeah.
see. Okay. I mean, that's another, team could like they may have just like read the landscape and say, who could we get more for? Jrue Holiday with a player option or Pascal with none, right? It might have come down to that if Pascal was indeed being offered, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like honestly, for moving back a bit and examining this from my NBA fandom as opposed to my Raptor fandom,
Mhm.
I like this deal for everybody. I thought it was a great deal across the board. I thought,
Explain it, sell it to me for Portland because I'm not getting it. I mean, okay, I understand the pick swaps and the pick. Good value there. And I understand that Dame kind of held their ass to the fire because, he basically said, I want to go to Miami. I'm not going anywhere else. So I get
yeah,
that he kind of diminished his market a little bit. But unless you really are able to flip Jrue Holiday for like additional picks and maybe a young player, I'm not really getting why DeAndre Ayton and Jrue Holiday moves the needle for a franchise player. Because like like you can't like who do you think won this deal?
if I had to rank them in order,
Yeah.
I would say uh, Milwaukee won probably. I honestly, I think they all won equally. I think Phoenix got what they
No,
wanted.
really?
I think so. I think Portland did okay considering. If if Masai
To
was being
trade Damian
Masai,
Lillard and to not get a single young asset, like a blue chip prospect. And by blue chip prospect, I mean a Franz Wagner
sure,
level prospect
sure.
back for a franchise player who has multiple years left on his deal, to me is a flop. I mean, you cannot like again, unless they're planning on then restarting this process with Jrue Holiday, but I don't think Jrue has anywhere near the value of a Damian Lillard, right? So it's hard for me to understand how you don't get that type of player back to pair with Scoot Henderson, right? I
Right.
mean, OG Anunoby would not have been enough for me if I'm Portland. I'm looking at like, okay, maybe Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes. No, you can't quite get that. But next step up, right? Like
Sure.
Tyler here, somewhere between Tyler Hero and Scotty Barnes, there is, someone that I can pair as a young core with Scoot Henderson.
Right.
Maybe they think they already have that player in Shaden Sharp.
Right.
I don't know.
Man, it's fucking crazy. It's like I don't think anybody was like nobody wants to give up their like young blue chip prospects. No, like nobody wants to give them up.
It's Damian Lillard, man.
I know, it's insane. It's crazy. It's nuts. I think like I think I would have gone so far like if it was the difference between not getting him and getting him, I feel like I may have rolled the dice on OG and Grady Dick, right? And I think that for some people that seems insane to say, right? But like if they were saying, "Nah, we don't want Pascal, we want OG, and we want your first round pick from this year," we're like,
yeah,
for fucking Dame, bro, Dame.
Kevin H saying, "Did y'all miss the part where Dame was okay going to Milwaukee, but not Toronto?"
Oh
yeah,
I mean,
we've heard for weeks that Toronto would be his least desired destination. He doesn't want to go to a young team, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, they've been through this before with Kawhi, right? What was he gonna do? Not show up? Not get paid? Like I think he would have been fine. I think they would have sold him on it. I think it would have been okay.
I think he would have been okay too. I think where he was coming from is that like out of all those places, we have the most work to do in Toronto, which is totally fair.
That's totally fair. Absolutely. Especially if you get rid of Pascal in that deal as well. But I mean, he's already talked about how much he loves playing, how he's always wanted to play with OG. So there would be somebody there. The roster fit around here makes a lot of sense. I mean, I was ready to fire up a live today to talk about why Dame to Toronto makes so much sense. And now we got Dame to Milwaukee and Toronto is in shambles. But I really don't think this is doom or gloom for Toronto. I just think, if you've been following Raptors social, seems to me there's a very clear like what the hell are they doing not talking about Pascal more. And the last caller made a really good point, which I think is fair, and actually I've noticed it as well. Darko Rakovic has like like how everyone at Hogwarts doesn't say he who shall not be named. It's almost like the entire Raptors coaching staff has the same thing with Pascal Siakam right now, where they're just not talking about him, and I don't understand it. Because it's like, could you be any more transparent? Rahul, number 27, saying, "Are you upset Masai didn't make a move for Damian Lillard?"
Well, he made a move.
I'm not upset. I'm not upset he didn't make a move for him, although I would have loved it. I mean, if for nothing else, I would have loved it for 2K. Pull up from the logo.
Oh my God.
Every single time down the stretch, let's just pull up from the logo. Team starts double, boom, like 3 to OG, alley-oop to Scotty Barnes would have been great. People were saying, "Oh my God, like, aren't you worried about Scotty not getting not playing point if they traded for Damian Lillard?" Like, I'm like, are you insane? No, absolutely not. Like, I don't care. Like, it's not about point guard. Like, I think people need to get this out of their head about like, oh, this point or that point. It's not like that. Like, I mean, you need multiple playmakers. The Raptors have multiple playmakers. Neither one of them can shoot right now. That's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a really big problem.
Yeah.
Pascal and Scotty running an offense is a problem for me.
Yeah.
Right. The spacing on this team with Jakob Poeltl is a problem. And I don't need to see an entire season to tell you it's going to be a problem all year. So the Raptors need, and I don't think Grady Dick is solving that problem in year one. Like, he might solve it in 3 years, but he's not solving it next year. So I think the Raptors are perpetually have been for months now in limbo, where this roster without Fred VanVleet does not make sense. I know people are happy to see him go. I might even be a little bit happy to see him go too, just because I don't have to talk about him anymore. But from a roster construction point of view, I don't think you should be happy to see him go, because he made a lot of things work for this team that without him just do not work.
Right. Would you flip Pascal for Jrue? Straight up 1 for 1. No picks involved. Nothing.
No, I would not. 33 years old, Jrue Holiday. I mean, I love Jrue Holiday, greatest person ever. like in the NBA, like you couldn't find 5 nicer people and probably 5 better teammates. And, he could do a lot of stuff for this team, for the young guys that I think he would have like a very Kyle Lowry effect, I think, on this team.
That's
And,
what I'm
and it
saying.
would be a very good thing for this team to have him. Plus, he's actually quite comfortable playing off guard. So I think that would be really great for Scotty as well. But that being said, no, he is 33 years old. He's owed a shit ton of money. And if he has one more injury, like you're sitting on a lemon, I don't think so. No, again, it's the same thing. Like, I would want a young asset. I need a young asset back. In any
Right.
trade, I need a young player that I can build into the next core with. Right.
Right.
And Jrue Holiday is not him. Now, if they were offering, for instance, a couple of picks with Jrue Holiday, yeah, now I have to consider it. Because then Jrue Holiday becomes either a player option, free agent, or an expiring next offseason for me. But
yeah, but that's not going to happen. Portland's not in that business right now. They're not into the business of dealing picks. They want to get picks.
yeah, but I mean, I think Pascal fits a little bit more on their timeline too. I mean, I'm not saying that he fits their timeline because their timeline right now is everything Scoot and Shaden Sharp, but
Yeah.
at least positionally, I mean, do you see this roster right now? Anthony Simons,
Yeah, it's crazy.
Scoot Henderson, Jrue Holiday is your power forward right now.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna deal through that.
But I mean, like now, it's like everyone knows you have to deal him because you can't keep him. Who are you going to put on the bench? You going to put Anthony Simons and Shaden Sharp on the bench? Like even if you started Shaden at 3 and Scoot at the 1 and Jrue at the 2, like you very small.
Who on the Raptors are you giving up for Jrue?
Gary
and Precious?
Yeah, I would look into it. Gary, Thad,
I
Boucher,
would do
Precious, like in that range. I mean,
because think about it.
and the question then becomes, to what end? Are you winning a championship with Jrue Holiday and Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby and Scotty Barnes? I mean, you're not.
I mean,
Like you might be competitive though. Like you might be really competitive.
You take a step in the right direction,
But
right? Like
is it a step in the right direction though?
Or sorry, you take a step in the winning direction, I should say.
Well,
right?
that's the question though. How
you're
much
winning more.
like but how are you winning though? Like this is the question that I think must be asked, right? I think if nothing else, this season has to serve as a demo for what do you have in Scotty, OG, and Grady? I think I need to see it. I need to know because I think it's going to inform my decisions next offseason if I'm the Raptors much more. Are we close?
Right.
Okay, let's parse out some more picks and accelerate this. Are we far? Then let's get younger and let's try to bottom out the following year and tank for a guy who can actually take us to the next step. Like I think you need to know, right? Like every team with a player like this has to clear the way for them, right? The Denver Nuggets traded Yusuf Nurkic so Jokic could start. The Milwaukee Bucks, they traded Jabari Parker because they needed to see Giannis with the ball in his hands. Like you have to clear the way for these guys, because you need to be able to see them lead a team.
Totally.
You need to be able to see it. And you never know. You never know, right? Like look at what James Harden did in Houston. The very next year, he was 6th man the previous year. He struggled in the playoffs. Boom, comes out 50 points, right? Same thing with Tracy McGrady. Who the hell saw that coming in Orlando? You never know what a guy can do when he gets the reins. Now, I'm not saying Scotty's like Tracy and James Harden, but he has a lot more in common with those guys than most players do. So, I could see, I just want to see the jump. And if we see the jump, well, now it completely changes your thinking on everything, right? Because now, if he's close, now maybe certain trades make sense, right? Like if you're like, okay, this guy's like, we're thinking 2026, maybe he's ready 2024. Because if he starts showing you that this is going to happen really quickly, suddenly my thinking might change on what my window actually is around this guy. But if he proves to be like, okay, jumper's still shaky, one night he has it, one night he doesn't have it, one night he's like shooting 2 for 5 from 3, one night he's shooting 2 for 8 from 3. Okay, I mean, we still might need another offseason here, and that's fine. He's 22 years old. Like people need to chill. But I really want to see it. And I don't know if you're going to see it if you have Pascal and Jrue here and OG. Like, I mean, those are three guys who take a lot of shots.
I mean, you still got to cash in that Pascal chip somehow, some way. The
Okay,
only thing is that
let's take
Jrue doesn't.
Portland. Let's take Portland off the table. Let's take Atlanta off the table. Send Pascal to a third team. Who are you sending him to?
There's no teams that work. There's like the only teams that would want Pascal are the teams that want every star that comes up, like the Clippers, like are the guys, the teams who have nothing to offer. Like, well, our cupboards are bare, but we'll take your star off your hands for you.
Hmm.
I don't like put so the top four in the East as of last year: Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, and well, Miami wasn't in the top four, but we'll put him there. Cleveland,
Yeah,
right? He's not working on any of those teams. He's
Philly.
not working
You
on New
forgot.
York.
Okay,
Is he working on Philly? They got nothing to give back,
they got
right?
Harden.
Would you do that? Oh my God, I can't believe
I
what I'm
love
hearing right
James
now.
Harden. I love James
But on the
Harden.
Raptors,
Anywhere, I love James Harden. Um, Why did Masai refuse the ATL package for Siakam? We have a good enough sample size to realize we should go the rebuild route. Well, I mean, it's conjecture. We weren't in the room. We don't know what was offered.
yeah,
We don't
nobody
know,
knows.
how many picks were offered. We can only guess. We can guess that AJ Griffin was offered, and we can guess that DeAndre Hunter was offered. But there needs to be a little bit more in that trade to just make salaries match. And I don't know what that something more was. So if that's something more, and again, this trade is still there technically, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you could still revisit it right now. Um, and I
they're
think
not gonna.
if I'm the
They
Atlanta
were.
Hawks, maybe this ramps up the Atlanta Hawks thinking too. Because Damian
Oh
Lillard
yeah,
did just come into the East, and maybe they feel like, hey, like, I mean, what are we going to be, the fifth team in the East? And I don't know.
fifth
Um,
Atlanta. They're not fifth. No way. No way.
I
They're
mean,
gonna be like 7, 8, 9, 10. So they're gonna be play in.
whoa, 10? I mean,
I mean, between
this
7 and 10, they're gonna be play in. Like they're one injury away from being the 10th place team, and a full season of Trae Young being a 7th, right?
I mean,
They
Trey
just
and
don't.
DeJounte Murray is it's like a lot of backcourt help, right? They got a lot of good young players. I think they've got a lot of good young players. I think Onyeka Okongwu could take a really big step up. Um,
I I like.
Clint
I
Capella
will
is a
take.
serviceable center.
I will take Indiana's team over Atlanta's team personally. I'll take New York. I'll take Cleveland.
Indiana?
Yeah,
What
I
do you
like
like
their
on
young core.
Indiana?
Oh, I
Ben
love their young
Mathurin
core.
and Tyrese Halliburton is enough for you to just sleep on.
Miles Turner, hello. He's. I love Miles Turner.
You think
I
he's
love
better
those.
than you think he's better than Onyeka Okongwu?
Right now, he is sure. Yeah, maybe not long
I
term.
think it's
Nobody knows,
really close, man. I think it's
bro. I think
really
you're.
close between those two.
I know how hype you are about Onyeka, but I mean, he's not there yet. Like, if he was there now, if he was better than Miles Turner now, he would have been better than Clint Capella last year. You know what I
He is
mean?
better than Clint Capella.
Well, he wasn't starting, and he hasn't overtaken Clint's minutes.
I mean,
So
it's like I mean, that's the crux of being 22 and playing behind a veteran, right? Like, I mean,
right,
I would say per minute he's impacting winning a lot more than Clint Capella right now. But
sure, I like him.
nevertheless, I
I
mean,
like him.
I like him a lot, and I think if you talk to Atlanta fans, they'll tell you leave our Onyeka alone, and they watch him play every night. Like, I mean,
Listen,
like
I think you can't argue with a center with the skill set that he's got. Like, sure, he may not Miles Turner. I mean, he may not be like, I don't know, the best passer out of the short roll, but like a guy who can legit protect the rim and knock down threes at a credible rate is extremely hard to find, right? And so guys like
that's fair.
as recent enough
Look,
as Marc Gasol.
I would love Miles Turner. I would have loved Miles Turner last year. I think Miles Turner is the perfect big to pair with Scotty Barnes. Like, I think it's a
It
great.
If Miles Turner was the
He's
guy we
awesome.
got instead of Yak, 100%, I would have been like on board with that trade 1,000%. Right, another guy who can shoot. Now Jakob is a better playmaker, but it's all we got is fucking playmakers on this team. We got nobody who can shoot the goddamn
Mel
ball.
saying, to me, it's clear that the starters are overworked and the bench is underused. The team morale was low. Can Darko fix those things without a superstar? That's the question. Absolutely, he can. You know, I mean, the superstar does not influence how much the bench plays. In my opinion, you know, that comes down to lineup construction and trust, and also like the roster construction itself. You know, I think having Otto last year would have added another guy definitely playing 20 minutes every single night for you, right?
Yeah.
But he wasn't there. And, you know, I think this year Grady and Schroeder are playing for sure. So you've lost one guy who was definitely playing in Fred VanVleet, and you've added
Yeah.
two guys who are definitely going to get minutes in Grady and Schroeder. So immediately you're like at least one player deeper. You may not be better, but you're definitely deeper. Just
Well,
by
but
virtue of
and
the fact that you've added two.
and assuming that Otto is actually better this year,
And assuming the fact that you have Jakob Poeltl for a full season as opposed to, you know, starting last year. I mean, this time last year, there was no Jakob Poeltl on this team. There was no Dennis Schroeder. There was no Grady Dick. There was just Christian Koloko starting. You didn't give up shit for Jakob other than the picks, right? But I mean, like, we've already cried over that. You give up Kem Birch. So really, if you want to swap out this roster for last year's roster at this exact time, we're talking, forget picks, Kem Birch and Fred VanVleet for Jakob Poeltl, Dennis Schroeder, and Grady Dick.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not nearly so. It's not all like it's not all doom and gloom. Like, I don't understand why people underrate this team so much. And had I done lives all summer, like if I'd done lives every single day, I would have repeated this message every single day until like people were pretty hyped about the Raptors. It's just like, I believe in this team. I just don't think the lineups make sense.
I think there's a semi-major caveat in that you're getting Grady Dick in year one, so nobody really knows what to expect there. Typically, rookies don't have too great an impact on any team. Typically, it's not always the case, of course.
Smart, but I mean, like Christian Brown had an impact last year, and to me, Grady is a slightly better version of the same type of player. I mean, not the same type of player, and I'm not comparing them because they're both white guys that played at the same place. But in terms of like,
Christian Brown is nice.
It's not even about defense or offense or whatever. It's just, in order to impact winning, for me as a rookie, you got to do something really well, and your coach has to put you in a position to do what you do well a lot. So I look at someone like OG Anunoby or Scotty Barnes as rookies. They were both impactful as rookies, right? So in that case, Casey and Nurse got something out of 19-year-olds who probably a lot of people thought weren't ready to contribute, but they simplified their role. If Grady Dick can play 20 minutes a night and just be a knockdown shooter who moves off the ball, and they can hide him a little bit on defense while he figures out that end of the floor, I don't see why he can't have a positive impact on winning. I'm not saying it's going to be an overwhelmingly positive impact, but I think it can be a positive impact.
Sure.
They just need to simplify the role. Now, if you put the ball in his hands and say ISO 15 possessions a game, he's not going to have a positive impact. It's going to probably have a negative 5.5 box plus minus. But on this team, I don't think he won't be asked to do that. And actually, he'll be playing, if Siakam stays, he'll be playing off of two tall playmakers who will do nothing but find him open for shots. And he's so needed. Like, he is so needed. It's ridiculous. Like, his skill set is so needed on this team. It's been needed for years, but like, it's so needed right now, and they need him to work out.
I think if he's going to work, I think they're going to find out fairly early that you won't be able to play him with Pascal, Scotty, and Yak at the same time.
Why?
I think you're going to have to. I think because like three non-shooter, I think it's too easy to defend him. Like, if you look at him playing summer league, he was like one of the only shooters on the court, and so he was smothered. and so that's why he shot such a poor percentage, and
Mm,
he was he was never open,
I
right?
don't
And so
I
if you
don't
put
agree
him
with
on with
that.
three
Just
non-shooters,
But I don't agree with that. I don't think the issue with the Raptors summer league lineup was that they didn't have shooters. It's that they didn't have talent. They didn't have any
right?
talent around him.
Sure,
Even at Kansas, he was the best shooter in the country last year.
right,
I could make an
right,
argument. It was him and like two other guys in the running. He's one of the top 3 shooters. He was on every scouting report, right?
right.
The thing is, you get guys like him and Jordan Hawkins, and everyone knows those are the guys, they're the shooters, whatever. Okay,
Yeah,
fine. But do you have talent around them? Right?
right.
Draymond Green is opening up all sorts of shooting angles for Clay and Steph without ever taking a three. He doesn't need to hit threes.
Sure, sure,
It's
sure.
just talent. It's the playmaking. So Pascal Siakam has gravity. Scotty Barnes has gravity. It's through their quick passing, their high angles, their talent, their downhill scoring, their ability to break down their guy, their ability to draw a double in the post, etc. So Grady can play off of that. You don't need to. This is not like one of those things where it's like, okay, well, you got to have Larry Bird and Steph Curry out there in order to draw attention away from Grady Dick. I think
Right,
Grady and again, the sets are really for Grady to draw attention away for those guys. It's to provide space for those guys. So really his role is not as necessarily a finisher, more as a spacer. So
right,
I mean, he can obviously finish and he should be, willing to let like 6, 7, 8 threes a game fly if he's playing heavy minutes. But I mean, the end goal is he's there to support them. They're not there to support him. So,
right,
at the end, like
right,
I think he is needed in those lineups. If nothing else, I think, what I would love is if the Raptors, and especially with Darko talking everything about, like how deep his Memphis teams were and stuff, and they have been very deep for years. Memphis is always deep. They always run 10, 11 deep. They always have these
right,
guys at the end of the bench that are ready to play. So if the Raptors, have any hope this season, it will be through depth. And if they can develop
right.
sort of a bench mob 2.0,
Totally.
where Grady, Dennis Schroeder, and McDaniels and like
Right.
Christian Coloco and Precious Achiuwa can just come off the bench and fuck shit up, or like
Or
even
Otto
Otto
Porter.
or
Yeah.
Otto, like that could be such an interesting 5-man unit, right? And then the
Yeah,
starters
there
are
could be
already
some
like
funky
really
lineups for sure.
cool. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? So I think that could be really great. Again, I can't wait for the season to start. I really can't. I think people like who think this team is really bad, like, or they're going to be a playing team at best or whatever. No, man, I think that's the floor. I really do. I think playing is the floor. I think Scotty's kind of been on record saying like, hey, stay patient with us. We're going to be good, et cetera, et cetera. What else is he going to say? He's going to be like, nah, stay at home. We're going to be bad. I get
Sure,
it.
sure.
I get it. He's going to say that because he has to say that. But I think he believes it too.
Do you still believe that if Pascal gets dealt, then we still that's playing is still the floor?
Depends on what you get for him. Are you
Depending on what? Okay,
getting
let's say we're getting at Atlanta's what I think is a poo-poo platter of DeAndre Hunter and AJ Griffin. I know you love AJ Griffin like he's your son, but I just don't see how he's gonna like. I don't see how that guy has a route to being an all-star in the league, right?
you
Like
don't?
solid starter maybe, but yeah,
Okay. Is Pascal Siakam an all-star?
he is a proven all-star. Yes, he's
Okay.
been a
Was Fred
couple
that
times.
was Fred VanVleet an all-star?
I mean, you can put caveats on both their all-stardom because
No, you cannot put a caveat. There's no caveat in all-stardom for Scott for Pascal. He is definitively an all-star.
didn't he get in because of injuries both years?
No. He got in
Really?
this year. I don't think the last time was because of injuries. No, he was definitively an
Oh, I thought
all-star
you.
the last
Oh,
time.
okay.
And whether or not he got in because of injuries, he deserved all-star this year. The Raptors
Sure,
were
sure, sure, sure,
underperforming a little bit.
sure.
I'm trying to think of who else. Chris Middleton, was he an all-star?
Yeah,
Okay, so those are 3 all-stars we just named. I guarantee you AJ Griffin's better than all those players at the age of 19. Okay,
okay.
so I'm just saying, like, he's not even a little bit better than all those guys. He's way better than all those guys at 19. That
I
could
hope
be
so.
said for a lot of players because you know who else is better than all those guys at 19? Michael Beasley. But I
Sure.
get it. But at some point, like talent times work ethic times, level-headed. Like, I just love watching AJ Griffin play. He's one of the smartest players, like, for his age. He just gets it, man. Like, I don't know. Like, when you watch a young player that age and you're like, that guy, he just stands out to me. He really does.
Right. I hope you're right. If they do trade for him, then I hope you're right. But
Yeah, but
like
I mean, if
that,
they trade Pascal Siakam for AJ Griffin and
DeAndre
Hunter,
Hunter.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not seeing playoffs. I'm
No.
seeing maybe maximum they push for 10th, 9th,
Sure.
and make it competitive. Yeah.
Okay. Quick thought exercise. Is Damian Lillard truly that much better than Jrue Holiday,
Yes.
given his misgiving? Like, and
Yes.
if so,
Yes.
like I think yes,
Yes.
as well, for sure. I'm going into this question like
Is this
acknowledging,
thought
yes, he is
exercise
better.
whether I've lost my mind?
No. But like, given how good Jrue Holiday has been as a defender, right,
Okay.
and how poor Damian Lillard has been as a defender, could the gap between them be a little smaller than most people seem to make out?
It is a lot smaller than people make it out to be, because people think that Damian Lillard is like 3 times better than Jrue Holiday, whereas maybe he's a time and a half better than Jrue Holiday. But you cannot understate that offense is more valuable than defense in the NBA, especially when you put good defenders around your so-called bad defender. Not so-called, he's definitely a bad defender. Damian Lillard is a
Right.
bad defender.
Right.
But yeah, man, like what he does on offense, like what it does for the other players on his team. He's never
Yeah.
played with anyone even half as good as Giannis. Like, no offense to CJ McCollum. CJ was like a fringy all-star. And
Well,
that's being very kind. Like, he's a
I
really
guess
good player.
LaMarcus would be the closest guy
LaMarcus
there.
Aldridge, like, I mean, we're
And he
talking LaMarcus
sucks.
Aldridge and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
really, really stretching it here, right?
Yeah. You're
I
talking
mean,
top 50
yeah,
of all time versus whatever.
like Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo both have a case for like top 35, top 40 players of all time.
Right.
When it's all said and done. Like, I'm not being a hype boy for Dame. Like, he's really great. And if he wins a championship, even more so. So,
Right.
I mean, shit, right? Like, you're pairing up like these two players. I think, yeah, like it's not particularly close. I know in the games that Giannis like missed and stuff, like Jrue went off. The Raptors saw one of those games where he just went off against us and whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah, like, I mean, yeah, Dame's gravity, his shooting, his playmaking, it's on a completely different level.
We should think about it. If Masai is if he's on the winning train, he wants to win, then think about it, right?
For Jrue?
See what you see what you can give up for Jrue. I have a feeling that Grady Dick would have to be into it, and that might be enough for most people to say no. But
it's not enough to say no. It's just, what are you doing at that point, right? Like so Jrue Holiday, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, and Scotty Barnes, and you're going to give up Grady Dick and Gary Trent Jr. and Precious Achiuwa and a whole bunch of young assets. And what are you gonna end up with? You're going to end up with Jrue Holiday making $37 million next offseason, which is exactly the amount of money you didn't want to give to Fred VanVleet. So congratulations. You get an upgrade.
Oh my God, but
you
dude,
get an
come
upgrade
on.
on Fred VanVleet, but like, I mean,
like,
it's an upgrade.
The
But
gulf between Jrue Holiday and Fred VanVleet is bigger than the gulf between Dame and Jrue. You know what I mean? Like,
it
is. Oh, come on, dude.
Oh my
Jrue
God.
Holiday,
Oh,
he's criminally underrated.
You know who's becoming criminally underrated? Fred VanVleet. Okay,
No,
and I hate that I am becoming a Fred VanVleet defender at this point. But like, but the minute this guy left, people want to act like he was a scrub. Yo, he's not a scrub.
No, I don't think it was
Like, he's a
scrub.
really good player. Okay,
I
so
mean,
if he's a really good starting point guard, then what the hell do you think Jrue Holiday is? A Hall of Famer? Like,
no, I don't think Fred is a really good starting point guard. I think Fred
You
is
don't?
like I think he's like the 20th best point guard in the league, and Jrue Holiday is like the 5th or 6th or something like that. Or not. I would have to go through them one by one.
at the most talented position in the league.
Yeah. So who you got? You got Steph. You got Dame. You got
Mm-hmm.
Luca, if you consider
He
him,
is
but
a
he's not
point
really a
guard, so
point
that's
guard.
3.
Okay.
Tyrese Halliburton,
Hallie.
Fox.
I might
What?
take Jrue over Fox, maybe. I love De'Aaron Fox, but like it's sorry, you could argue those guys are in the same kind of stratosphere, right? And sorry, I'm also going on off of what I've seen Jrue in the last couple of years. Like I love Jrue Holiday. I think
Look, I love him
he's a
too. He's one of my
phenomenal
favorite
player.
players, but I think people are going a little bit overboard if
He
they think that he's like a top 5, top 6 point guard in the NBA. He is not. He is like a
listen.
top 10 point guard in the NBA, and Fred VanVleet's like top 17, top 18. Like
I don't know
it's
how
not that far.
I don't know how many guys I've heard in interviews saying who's the toughest guard in guards anyway, who's the toughest guard in the league, and every single fucking one of them says Jrue. They
Yeah,
say Jrue over fucking Marcus Smart, and Marcus Smart's supposed to be
I
only a
agree.
defender,
I agree.
right?
Jrue Holiday is awesome as a defender, but he's playing with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Brooke Lopez and Chris Middleton under a veteran championship head coach.
Sure.
And where did they end up last year? Like, can we please like stop putting him in the same breath as like Steph and Dame? Like, this is a different level, right?
Okay. Jrue Holiday, I feel like is right now he is dying. He's dying for the sins of the Bucks of last year, because in that series, and I watched that series like relatively closely. It was only 5 games, right? They fucking did not give any help to Jrue on Jimmy Butler at all. Literally 0 double teams, right? So if he's cooking, any coach in their right mind would be like, okay, let's try something different. How long do you think it would have taken Nick Nurse to figure out that Jimmy is cooking right now and we need to do something to slow him down, despite how good of a defender Jrue Holiday is, right? Any coach would have been like, okay,
I'm
let's give
pretty
him a
sure
different
Nick
look.
Nurse would have sent a double on Jimmy Butler when he got off the bus. But like that is neither here nor there, because doubles are also not like always the answer. I understand Giannis's frustrations with how, Bud coached that series. I also understand, people defending Jrue Holiday and saying like whatever, they should have sent help or whatever. But look, at the end of the day, he's on a stacked team. They were the upper hand, right? And they lost. So, I mean, you could say a lot of teams lost to Miami last year that weren't supposed to lose to Miami, and Miami was on a historic run or whatever. Someone posed this a very interesting question: prime Jrue Holiday or prime Kyle Lowry? That is a really good comparison, and also a really, really good question.
That's the first place that my mind went when Jrue was traded, was just like Jrue would be a slightly better version of Kyle, I think. I mean, you could quibble with who's better overall. I feel like Kyle had a little bit more.
I think there's a lot of comparisons, but I think Drew's a bigger player. So like it just maybe just leans in the inches towards Jrue Holiday's favor. It's really close. But I think Kyle Lowry in his prime was definitively like a top 6 point guard, in my opinion.
Right.
But a lot of people kind of put him outside that list, even during his prime years when he was like racking up those extremely high box plus minus and, estimated plus minus years.
Right.
I don't know. Look, to me, the Raptors trading for Jrue Holiday would be insane. Even if it's just for Gary and Grady, like I think, it's not like, what are you doing? Like it's another. Yes, he helps. Yes, he makes you better, but I don't see a championship here. The minute Fred VanVleet left, I think the focus just needs to shift away from trying to bandage this, like rehab version of the run it back Raptors. Like Kawhi left, like it's over, like let's move on. Right. Next iteration of the Raptors, next window, figure out if that window starts in 2024, 2023, or 2026. And I think I would like to find out who you have in OG before you have to pay him $35 million and then figure it out while you've paid him already. Like, I'd rather figure it out now.
Right.
I honestly would. And, it's the same thing with Grady. I want to figure out what I have in these guys. I want to figure out what Christian Koloko is. I want to figure out what all these players are, and I'm not going to figure it out if they don't get playing time, they don't get the
Right.
ball. So, and you've invested all this money in development coaches, so let the kids develop. I think like Raptor fans are always jumping at like, well, we need Dame, we need Jrue Holiday, we need so and so, we need every single star who comes up. I get it, but at some point, it's like we're just trying to recreate the magic of Kawhi to some extent. It's like a big star. He comes here. We don't have a big star. Siakam's not a big star. Scotty's not a big star yet. So, we just want that big household name so we can feel hype about our team for a few months. But it's like, I'd rather feel hype about my team for the next 10 years, personally.
So here's my answer to that. So beyond having Kawhi, they at the same time they had a fantastic strength in numbers team, right? They had good depth, right? Like everybody, it could have been argued that like the top, what was it? We probably ran 8 or 9 deep that year. So the top 8 or 9 deep was the best 8 or 9 deep in the NBA, which is why one of the reasons that they ended up winning it all, right?
You mean
and so yes, we had Kawhi as the figurehead. He was the guy and whatever, but the fact that there was such good depth on that team, and everybody, like guys coming off the bench, were really good.
That we
Norm Powell,
traded
who's a
both like
starter.
DeMar and when you consider it, like the two big additions to that championship team were Marc Gasol and Kawhi Leonard. You know what they both have in common?
They both left for free.
Nope. I mean, they do have that in common. Thanks for bringing that up. No, we traded multiple assets to get both.
Sure. Yeah.
That's how deep this team was, and that's how well run this team was. For Kawhi, we traded Jakob plus DeMar. Technically, those are two guys who started for the Spurs the next year, right?
Yep.
And for Gasol, we traded DeLon Wright plus Jonas Valanciunas, two players who were drafted here, plus 2 guys who would fringe start and one who definitely did start. So it's like you had to develop first, then you could do these 2-for-1 trades.
Sure.
Who's to say, right now you don't develop someone like a Christian Koloko, Precious Achiuwa, you develop these guys, and then, a couple of years down the line, you're like, all right, Franz Wagner isn't happy in Orlando. Okay, we'll trade you Precious Achiuwa plus Grady Dick for Franz Wagner. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that's how you make those deals. But these guys have to develop first, right? And the Raptors under Dwayne Casey, they developed. The Raptors under Nick Nurse did not.
I think if we're going to make a move for Jrue, it would have to be kind of like it would have to be like what's the least we could give up? Like, could you give up?
But then why
Precious and a pick or something like that?
We don't have picks. We don't have picks. There's no picks to give up. There's nothing we can give up.
Yeah, we got picks.
We have no picks. Can't give up picks because your next year is suspended because you don't know if you're giving it up yet because it's lottery protected top 6.
Yeah.
Right. So how can you give up? So you lose. So you've lost 2024, but you haven't technically lost it yet. You know that?
Because you waive the protection. You waive the protection on the 2024 pick so that it does convey for sure, and then you can trade 2026. I'm not saying multiple picks. I'm just saying, like, I don't know, stick around for the Cooper Flag, draft. But you could theoretically, if you could get like right now, if you could give up Boucher, Precious, and a 2026 pick, would you get Jrue Holiday for that for 2 years for two more seasons?
I get where you're coming from, but this is just the wrong development idea. Like you're taking the ball out of Scotty's hand, you're taking the ball out of Grady's hands, OG's hands. You're adding like at least 7 to 8 wins, right? From a guy who's not part of your long-term core. Like this is the Masai fault over the last 2 years. Is you're padding.
You're adding 7 Okay, but you're adding. Oh, sorry to cut you off here. It's your show. You're adding 7 to 8 wins to a 42-win team. That's almost a 50-win team there, bruh. Like
But
that's
what the
a
hell is a 50-win team? A 50-win team is nothing if you're not developing, right? Like
50-win
I
team
I
is
I
one injury away from being in the NBA Finals.
oh my goodness.
Sorry, in the conference finals. I'll say the conference finals. They are one injury
Oh my
away from being in
God.
the conference
Okay.
finals.
I am very, very much a long-term thinker. I just want this thing done the right way. I've watched it done the wrong way for a few years now. These
Me
band-aid
too, man.
solutions like Thaddeus Young, etc. There's
Me too.
nothing
But
to be gained by pretending that you are somewhere that you are not. The minute that Kyle Lowry left, the winning left. Like that was the last vestibule, and I understand this misguided sort of omerta that Masai has to his young
good
core,
word.
where he has to be like, okay, we got to give these guys a chance because we give everyone a chance, et cetera, et cetera. But you gave him a chance, it doesn't work. The magic, you can't just recreate the magic with everybody. It doesn't work that way. You know what I mean?
Oh, listen, I don't think we're ever going to get back to that. That was another era,
Ever.
and the no,
But
I
that's the
just mean
thing.
with
I think you
this
can. I
iteration.
think you can. I think you can. I think you can get back to it with Scotty Grady and OG and Precious and Koloko. I think this next core and Jakob, he's still young enough, man. Like he's 26, 27 years old. Maybe he can be a part of it too. I think like you have like the pieces that I want, like that are a little bit older, are guys like Dennis Schroeder, guys on small term contracts that are willing to take a smaller role, hopefully off the bench. So they can be veterans in the room, they can be guiding lights. Jrue Holiday would be your best player. In my opinion, right now, Jrue Holiday probably comes in and he's arguably your best player. Do
Right.
you really want your best player to be a 33-year-old when you're not contending? Because I don't.
Well,
Right.
I
And your
mean,
second best player is a 29-year-old who's looking for a max contract. And then your third best player is a guy who's looking for a max contract and he's 25 years old and he wants a bigger role. And now your fourth best player is the guy you're trying to make your first best player. Like, you understand you're in the exact same situation that you were with Fred VanVleet, except Jrue Holiday is better than Fred VanVleet and he's a lot less selfish. But like, at the end of the day, like, I don't care about these wins. Like, I just don't. Like, to me, it's like you're either aiming for
it's not
championships, aim for the
for
top, or aim
me.
for the bottom. I hate this middle thing. I hate it.
For me, it's not about the wins either. For me, it's not about the wins either. It's
Then what's
getting
it about?
talent
You're
in the
talking
door.
about,
It's about talent being in the door,
but like,
right? Because
okay, like, so if I
if you
sign
have
Hakeem
talent in the door,
Olajuwon, you get a lot more talented, but he's like 100 years old right now.
no. But I just
He's
mean
got
like
talent though.
assuming Drew is still like 33 is not 38. You know what I mean? Like
Okay, and
assuming he
38
still
is not
has
55, but like, I mean, Vince, 33 for an NBA guard. Like, you're talking like you could be holding him for his absolute decline season. Now, what are you
right.
holding?
Sure.
Right? This is like, I mean, to be honest, this is roulette. Like, 33-year-old guards is roulette. I understand he's bigger. He's a really smart player. Does not shoot that well. He's not
Right.
that good a shooter where I'm like, okay, he shoots well enough, but he's not that great a shooter where I'm like, okay, this is Damian Lillard, Steph Curry. I'm like feeling really comfortable right now. If I'm holding on right now to a 33-year-old Jrue Holiday, I'm having all the same fears as I would have had signing a 33-year-old Kyle Lowry, which is I could really, really, like, the floor is about to fall out from underneath me. I don't like that feeling. I really don't. So I am very
Right.
careful about players over 30 in general, just in the NBA in general. When it comes to big money players over 30, there are very few who are ever going to be worth it. And they have a very specific set of skills, not to quote Liam Neeson from Taken, but they have a very specific set of skills, and they can make life very difficult for some people. But I'm telling you, man, like Jrue Holiday, it could be over within a year. It really could. And when I say over,
Possible.
I mean like over as in like we're not talking about him as a top 15 point guard anymore. And within 2 years, we might not be talking about him as a starter, and you're still paying him, and he's still an asset on your books. But hey, he
Sure.
got you 7 wins in that first year. You know what I mean? Like, this is just not the way smart teams build. Smart teams build like the way the Sacramento Kings initially built, right? Or the way the Los Angeles Lakers built around Shaq and Kobe. Yeah, you build around a 19-year-old and a 26-year-old guy. Okay, perfect. You know why? Because ideally, they give you a 5-year window to compete, right? Like, and you have Glenn
Sure.
Rice, you have Eddie Jones in the first year, and then when Kobe's ready, clear those guys out. But you don't like, you don't, you know what I mean? Like there has to be
I
some
get
sort
it.
of
I get it.
there's
No,
a
of course.
logic to building long-term
Of course.
successful teams. And I think, like, for any Raptor fans out there who are like, what is a great example in the modern era? The Golden State Warriors are a great example. You
Right.
had tertiary pieces and like filler pieces like Andrew Bogut, Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, but you had that core. You had that core of Steph, Clay, Draymond. What did they have in common?
Yeah,
They grew
but
together. They were in their early 20s.
those are 3 Hall of Famers that they drafted in 4 years. Like
Yeah,
that's
they became Hall of Famers together. It's like none of those
or
guys were
sorry, 3
destined to
years.
become Hall of Famers,
Sure.
right? Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway, we got
I don't know.
yeah.
It could be argued that Draymond would have been good in on other teams as well, but I digress.
Who's to say? I don't think a lot of people would have given him the opportunity with the ball the way that they did.
Right.
Any final thoughts? And also, what did you feel about the screening? I didn't like. I mean, you told me you're going to bootleg the film. So for those of you who don't know, Vince had had 2 parts sort of in my film. Number one, he played a radio person named Michael with a Southern accent, which was really cool. And Vince had never,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, Vince had never acted before. And then the second thing
Nope.
is that, which was really interesting. And I had also never acted before, so hopefully we didn't fuck the film up. People seem to like it though. People seem to like the film a lot. And then the second thing
was
is, you liked it. I'm glad.
It was
And then the
great.
second thing is,
It was great.
it was great.
It was a great film. It was like the fact that you were able to, like, I don't even know how you did it. Like, it's unfathomable to think that you put that together by yourself. Like, it just seems insane to me. Insane.
Well, I mean, I didn't put it together by myself. I had a sound designer. But yes.
Sorry, did you edit it?
Yes.
Did you color it?
Yes.
Did you write it? Did you direct it?
Yes.
So then you made the film by yourself. Yes, of course you had actors, of course, right? But you did all the things outside of acting the roles. You did all the things that make a movie or make a film, right? You did it all.
I did not do sound design, but I did do the Foley, which was really cool. That was a really cool experience. I did the Foley.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's like all those extra things that you hear. So, like, for instance, right now, mug, dop.
Oh, right.
So I did that recording.
Foley. Yeah.
So so like the sound designer Igor, he sent me the sound file, and I'm like, bro, like footsteps, punches, all of these things are missing, and he's just like, yeah, like, we're gonna need a Foley artist, and I was like,
yeah. Crunchy boots in the snow.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. So I got to work, and I did it for 4 days, and he was just like, bro, this is like a fucking masterpiece. Like, I've never heard, what did he say to me? He said, I've never heard socks on laminate disbelievable. And I'm just like, okay. Cause like, I was like really mapping it out. I beat the shit out of my girlfriend's yoga pillow. It was cool for the fight scenes.
Nice.
Like
Nice.
So here's a tip to anyone who ever wants to make a really convincing fight scene. I put walnuts underneath chicken.
Wow.
Underneath my sweater, and then I beat the shit out of it, and it sounds so freaking like boom. It sounds like you're really beating the crap out of people. But anyways, people really liked it. But yeah, and then Vince's song, not 9 to 11,
10 past 9,
10 past 9, 10 past 9.
Right.
I got 9/11 on my mind right now. Sorry. 10 past 9 was a part of the film, which was really cool. By Nature Boy Music. Some of y'all probably just Google that and listen to it. It's a really cool song. I don't know why. I was listening to it while I was editing one day, and then I realized that my best friend's ex-boyfriend is drumming, and I was just like, what is going on? So yeah, that was really cool. But anyways, so
Mac, that's my boy Mac.
That's your boy Mac. I've met him.
Yeah.
Oh, the world is so small. Anyways,
Yeah.
so like, yeah, so Vince attended the screening, which was really cool.
Yeah, man, it was awesome. It was great to see, and it's I think one of my favorite parts is like how uncomfortable you are receiving compliments. It's so funny. Like,
Really?
yeah, it's so funny. I love it. And
Was I
people were
morose
showering
during
you.
the Q&A?
No, not
I thought I was
morose.
just
It's just
being
like
honest. I thought I was just being
you're the
honest because look, I fixed like 100 things today. Obviously, I could see all those things and maybe other people can't, but like, I mean, I don't
You know
know.
what, man? I am not I don't know what's the film version of a foodie? A filmy? Is that a thing? Whatever. I'm not a filmy.
Okay.
I like film. But like I couldn't get into the nuts and bolts of what makes a great film aside from the regular elements like
It was
writing,
fun to
directing,
watch.
and acting, right? Like
Mhm.
story, obviously. The main portion, the main parts, I can speak on. All the other ancillary things, I know nothing about. But I could tell that there was a pretty big difference from that first version that you sent me that I watched just on my phone and what I saw in the theater. I was like, it was vastly different. And that was done in I don't know, a 2 week span
2
or
months.
something like
It
that.
was like a month and a half. Yeah.
Oh, between the time that you sent that to me and the time that it
Yeah.
was air or that
It
it
was like a
was
month and a
screened.
half. I worked like
Okay,
18 to 19 hours a day. It was
right,
nonstop, like
right.
relentless. I mean, dude,
And
like I wanted to make this great for Rob, right? Like, so those of you who don't know, like last year, my friend Rob, who was the lead in this film, passed away. And he was a really big deal to me and to a lot of people, actually. And, this is his first, last, and only feature film, that he was the star of, and his whole family's
yeah,
there. And, I don't know. Like the part of me felt like they might never come back.
no,
For 90
I don't.
people who came, 70 of them are never going to watch this film again. So I can text them, in a month and say, "But I fixed it all," and they're not going to listen because once they've
Sure,
watched it. This is 2023.
sure,
People don't have the attention
sure,
span to watch things once, much less twice. So
sure,
it was
sure.
important to me to get it right. So yes, I worked my ass off. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
It was really great. And anybody who like, I don't know how does it work with release? I imagine it's going to be
I'm
put
gonna
into the
submit it.
world at some point.
I'm gonna submit it to festivals, and then we'll see what happens from there. And hopefully, then eventually it'll end up on Netflix or Crave. But definitely, I'm gonna put it in the contract with whoever we sign with. I want like at least a 3 to 4 week theatrical run in Toronto. I need people to see this movie because
Awesome.
I think it'll shift some people. But yeah. Anyways, thanks a lot for calling in, man. I got like one more caller, and then I'm gonna call it. I'm saying I'm gonna call it a night, but I gotta get back to editing. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, bro.
Um,
Do it.
have a good
Do
one.
it.
Peace.
Put in the good fight, bro. The work never ceases.
The work never ceases. All right.
That's right.
Peace. See ya. Okay, Regan, thank you for waiting. What's up?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. How did the whole event go? Overall, good?
It went really well. People liked the film. But yeah, I kept apologizing for it, and people were like, "Why are you apologizing? It's a really good film." I'm
No.
apologizing because I see things that other people don't see, I guess. But yeah.
No, you're good, man. Was it
uh,
like your first feature film?
It was my first feature. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've directed about, I think, 11 shorts, so that would be my first
Mm.
feature. Yeah.
You gotta make those shorts available on YouTube one day.
My shorts are available on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, Pensari Films. Anyways,
Basketball related?
no, none of
I've
my
never seen them. Wow. I
I
didn't
mean,
know that.
there's thousands and thousands of shorts on YouTube, and only one of my shorts, I think, maybe two of them have ever clipped like 10,000 views. One of
They're
them
only
clipped.
they're only like 30 minutes, right?
My shorts are anywhere from 5 minutes to 17 minutes, and I think one of them has like 2 million views, and it's like 6 minutes long. But yeah. Anyways,
All right.
what do you think of the Damian Lillard trade, and what do you think the
Oh,
Raptors
man.
need to do from here?
It upset me, but
It
I
upset
want
you.
to talk about the Raptors.
Okay, let's talk about the Raptors.
I guess let's get this over quickly because it's late. I'll ask you to put your GM hat on and
I already
just
have it
round
on.
out some awesome. So, who is up in free agency this season? That we could like target. Sorry, I'm
This
sorry.
season, you mean next season?
Sorry, yeah, on the Toronto team, who is up this season for free agency after the season's over?
Gary,
Is it
OG,
just
Pascal.
and then next season?
Well, hold on. It's Gary, OG, Pascal, Thad, Boucher,
Oh
and
my
Otto.
God.
Actually, it's all of them. They're all
Gary,
expiring.
OG, and Pascal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In terms of picks for or trading for picks for teams that want to win now for Siakam, in terms of the West, who do you see like the best suitors? Like I think of Dallas or not Dallas, I think of OKC as the best suitors who are wanting to win now and have like a treasure chest that can afford to take a risk, you know what I mean?
But will they take a risk? I mean, like, I've loved this idea of Siakam going to OKC for a really long time now because I think he really fits with their tall playmaker thing. And him plus
Yeah,
Shea plus Giddy is a really great trio. And I think they could be really competitive. Like, I think they could be competitive very soon. And I think if you're
yeah,
OKC, like, this eventually you do have to turn it over to competition, right? Because you do have your top 10 player, you have, a boatload of young players. Like, they've done it. They've done what they set out to do. Now it's time to cash in. I don't know if they're going to cash in for Pascal though, right? Like, they could cash in a multitude of different players, and I don't know if it's going to be Pascal. I don't know how Sam Presti feels about
yeah.
Pascal.
Maybe a year too early.
Yeah. Um, I don't know, man. Like, I think about teams that could use Pascal, and again, like as Vince did,
Dallas, but I don't like anything.
but they don't
Maybe
have anything to
Josh
give back.
Green.
No, I don't think so,
Isn't he a
man.
guard? I know nothing about the West really. I only know particularly about East players because we play them most, right? But
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough situation because you do have to find a team A that is in the window to be competing. B, you need to find a team that's comfortable taking a risk, a flight risk, like Pascal, that believes that they can actually convince him to stay. 3, it's a team that not only is competing, believes he can stay, but also where he fits, as in they could use a player like him. Now, most teams could use a player like Pascal Siakam, in my opinion, because he's a tall playmaker. He can play he could play 3, 4, 5. I think ideally 4, but you could put him in 5. You could put him at 3. You can put him as a point forward. He's pretty versatile relative to a lot of other players. He's really versatile. So, it shouldn't be that hard to find like a team that would like to keep him. But I think it's just
yeah,
the fact that the Raptors may be asking for a lot for a player who's not willing to commit long term to any other place.
I guess
So
it's finding the player you want first, right? Who are like the young players in Scotty's timeline that you like? And usually these trades are east to west, west to east. So I guess that's more particular in the West. Who do you think is in Scotty's timeline that you like? I like MPJ. I like
yeah, it's out
Jalen
of the question.
Williams.
Also out of the question. Neither one of those guys is going to get traded for
Really? I
Pascal.
love Wow, okay. What's
Are
up?
you think OKC would trade J Dub right now for Pascal Siakam? Because I don't. He's a
Can't answer the
19.
question, man. I don't know.
I don't think so. So yeah, so I think if you asked OKC fans right now, would you trade Chad Holmgren? I don't think they would trade you Chad Holmgren right now. It's just there's such a premium placed on youth, and I
What
don't
about Giddy?
absolutely hell no,
Yeah,
right?
no.
So I
And
mean,
just like
like,
every other marquee player in the league, even Maxey, like Philly's
but
got
I
to pick
mean,
a direction too. No one's gonna. There's like every team's got to hold on to their young guy as
mhm.
a security. So
I
it's like really
I
hard until
I
the
don't
deal is really
know.
beneficial to both teams, right?
Sure, but I just don't see a team in the West necessarily that has the assets, that has the roster, that has the timeline, that where Pascal really fits. I think it's a really clunky fit. But I do look at teams like Indiana, Miami, Atlanta in the East, and I'm just like, could one of those teams really use a guy like this? And for the Raptors side, what do you get back? Like, you probably get back a combination of a young asset that may not be a blue chip prospect, but something close to it.
Yeah,
A good rotational piece in his prime, and probably a first round pick. That's
like
probably what you're
one
looking
good
at,
player.
unless he commits long term to the place where he's being traded. I just don't.
Uh,
I think this is going to be a bit of a rude awakening for a lot of Raptor fans. I just don't think Pascal Siakam's value is as high as some people think it is.
who do you think would Indiana be willing to give up Namhart?
Absolutely. And
Wow.
there was
Even though they've said he's untouchable,
they've never said he's untouchable. It's
I've seen that.
well, I mean, reports say they're not willing to part out with Andrew Nembhard, but like let's be real here. Andrew Nembhard is a backcourt player who is a second round pick who had a couple
Yeah,
of really big games last year.
yeah,
There's no chance in hell he's untouchable. And he was an
yeah,
older rookie to begin with.
yeah.
Like, there's a
This is
reason
all
he slid to the
cap.
second round. So, like, I mean, just because they're saying that he's not available does not mean that he's untouchable. It just means that he wasn't traded at that particular time, or they
Hmm.
weren't willing to include him. See, this is the problem with broken telephone. Let's just say the deal in principle is done. Like, the deal is Buddy Hield, Miles Turner plus stuff for Pascal Siakam. And let's
Never gonna
say the
happen.
sticking point is Andrew Nembhard in or out. And the Raptors are like, we need him. And then the Bucks are like, the Pacers are like, no. So the report reads what? The the Pacers were not willing to trade Andrew Nembhard for Pascal Siakam. But Andrew Nembhard makes like $1.5 million a year. Pascal Siakam makes like 40 plus. So clearly there was like a lot of other stuff in that deal, right? Like, it's not just, the Pacers wouldn't trade. See, this is where I get like really frustrated with the reports, because the report will read the Pacers are not willing to give up Andrew Nembhard for Pascal Siakam, and that's just not accurate. Anyways, yeah, I'm not really sure where Pascal's going to go or if he's going to stay or whatever. But if he stays, I hope they resolve this contract stuff soon. I do not need another entire year of wondering whether or not we're about to lose a star for nothing. But yeah, thanks for calling in, Regan. I really appreciate it, man.
Oh, you're getting rid of me just like that? All right, man. No worries.
Yeah, we're
Take care.
closing in on 2 hours, man. Peace. We got one more. It's called Timeline. Timeline, you are the last caller. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on? I just
First
heard
time
that
caller?
there's a lot of talk going on about timelines, like Scotty's timeline, Pascal's timeline.
So I'm assuming your name is not Timeline.
No, it's just my nickname.
Okay. Oh, it is literally your nickname. That's super cool.
No, I'm just messing around.
I am very gullible, apparently. Okay, man. So what do I call you?
You can call me Gary.
Okay, Gary. What are your thoughts on Timeline, Dame, and what do you think is going to happen with Pascal Siakam?
To be honest, I was hoping to talk about a scenario where Pascal Siakam actually stays, and that's
Great.
just in line with
Okay.
like the timelines for everybody.
Okay.
And I was thinking somebody that might fit like a timeline for the Raptors for everybody might be someone like Zach LaVine, who's still quite young, and maybe we can get like a deal centered around like Gary Trent, Grady Dick, a pick once we renounce the top 6 protection for the Raptors draft there, and maybe something like Chris Boucher and some other filler. And that way you have like
You value Zach LaVine that much to give up a lottery pick and Gary. Yikes. We are very far apart on Zach LaVine. Sell me on Zach LaVine. What do you like about him?
I just love the fact that he's been a perennial all-star, well, fringe
He has
all-star,
not
let's
been.
say. And he has an amazing three-point percentage for quite a number of years. He's like bordering on 40% and above on a regular basis, and three-point shooting is definitely something we need with the lack of shooting that comes from
But you're giving up
mainly Jakopoto.
But you're giving up two of your best shooters. You're giving up a shooting specialist in Gary and another shooting specialist in Grady, and you're getting back a shooting specialist. So, like,
Yeah,
help me understand how this helps your shooting because, like last year, you're saying like he's hovering over 40%. Like he's only shot 40% or above in his career once. He was 37% last year, which is around just barely above league average, which is good, like really good.
I think league average
Um,
is like 35, no?
it was almost 36 last year.
Almost 36, so 35 something, yeah.
Yes, I mean, like, okay, and I mean,
And I wouldn't
he's
also call Gary
been an
Trent
all-star
like
twice.
yeah, I wouldn't call Gary Trent necessarily like a specialist in that regard. He might be a specialist in the sense that he's like a scorer similar to like the Lou Williams type of player that might come off the bench for a really good team or start for like a mediocre or a poor team. I just don't see Gary Trent really getting that far. Plus, he's on a
You realize
contract.
they have the exact same career three-point shooting percentage, right? Like Gary's three-point shooting percentage career is 38.4. Zach Levine's is 38.4. It's identical.
Okay,
Like
that's
you
fair.
are trading a three-point shooter for a three-point shooter, and you're adding the younger three-point shooter, the less injury-prone three-point shooter, the cheaper three-point shooter, to a guy who is, in my opinion, an albatross contract.
Oh, well, that was
And
signed a few years ago before these crazy extensions came along. I think at the max, I'm not looking at it right now, but he's not getting to like the likes of Dame and all these other superstar max contracts.
shouldn't even be in the same forget like he's 28 years old, right? So like whatever upside he has right now, I'm not really sure. I think this is kind of like the best days are behind him or he's in the best days right now,
Well,
right?
yeah, he should be
He
in the
signed a
next best
5-year,
days.
$215 million contract. So you're saying he's not in the Dame territory. My guy, like he's this year making 40 million, next year 43 million, next year 46 million. Then he has a player option for $49 million.
Which he'll probably decline at that point as long as he's
Why would
actually playing quite well. Which
do
I
you
would
think at
assume he'll still
you
be a
think at
25 and
31
5,
you
25,
think
5
at
and 5 player
31
at that
years
point.
old you think at 31 years old he's going to decline an option for 49 million dollars?
With the way
If he
inflation's going, probably because contracts at the max are probably going to be like $70 million at that point. So I think he'd probably decline it, yeah, and maybe try and get like a 3-4 year deal in the likes of $40 to $50 million.
if he signed a contract right now, I don't think he would get 32 million, to be completely honest with you. Like I don't even think he comes close to 32 million right now. It was an overpay when they signed him and that was based on upside and based on retaining the asset. It was always considered an overpay
Yeah,
when they
in
signed
today's
him. He's
dollars,
not
I
a
still,
super but
yeah,
he's
in
not a
today's dollars,
superstar.
I don't feel it's an overpay, even like today's dollars, to be honest
You
with you.
don't think $40 million for Zach LaVine is an overpay right now?
I don't think so, to be honest. No, he's like a
Okay.
25, 5 and 5 kind of player with a great 3-point shooting. Not the best defense, but at the point guard position with his size and athleticism, he can
He's
probably
not a
hold
point
his own.
guard.
A lot of times he plays point guard. Yeah,
He shouldn't. And I
yeah.
mean, he's
And in
not.
fantasy, he's usually slotted at the point guard, shooting guard
See,
as well.
this is the problem. This is real life, not fantasy. So, like, I mean, to me, it's like this is a player who barely impacts winning
Yeah.
above an average starter. Like, he
Well, if
is
he
to
can
me an
be,
above average starter, and he's being paid like a superstar.
yeah.
And you're talking about trading Grady and Gary for him, and I'm
Well, maybe
thinking,
not both. Then I'm open to compromise on that. If you think he's even worth less, and and we can get him on this team for even less than that, maybe Gary Trent and not Grady Dick and a pick plus Boucher, something like that.
okay, so you're trading Grady, Gary Trent, and how much better do you think Zach LaVine is than Gary Trent?
Uh,
Apparently, you think he's way better
I
if
think
you're
he's
willing to
like a good
trade.
1 to 2 tiers above him, yeah, and he'll probably remain that way for the next like 5 years or so.
So you think that a guy whose entire, I mean, I don't want to say entire game because I mean he is a shooter, But you think that a guy who's been a scorer, who's a quick twitch athlete, who's had a slew of injuries, by the
Yeah.
way, at 28 is going to retain his current production for the next 5 years? Yeah, we are not like I don't agree with you at all.
Yeah.
I
You
think
don't
like
think he'll remain 1 to 2 years? You think he's 1 to 2 years above, tiers above Gary Trent right now? And you think he can hold?
I think he's had the opportunity to be 1 to 2 tiers above Gary Trent, but I mean, like, I'm not a huge Gary fan by any means. I think he's a good enough player, but like to me, like neither one of these guys is like moving the needle for you to win a championship.
Yeah.
They're
And I'm not
both
saying necessarily that this is to move the needle to win a
yeah,
championship, but this is
but
a way
you
to get
start
to
paying
like a,
someone like $40 million to $48 million a year, and you're paying them like a star. That's a star. That's star money. That's 30% of your cap. That's like, I mean, there's 15 to 16 players on a team. If you're paying 30% of your money to one player, that player better be giving you at least 10 wins. This guy doesn't give you 4 wins. I don't get it. That's what I don't get. Like, I've never understood the Zach LaVine hype. He's gotten a lot more efficient. Like, granted, you know, the last 3 years, last year maybe not as efficient, but like, yeah, he had a couple of really efficient years. He's never won anything, man, ever,
yeah.
other than the dunk contest. Like, there's no winning at all. He does not impact winning for me. Like, he's not better than Jrue Holiday. I'll tell you that. Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Anyways,
fair
man,
enough.
thanks.
I don't
Yeah.
think this moves the needle, just like you're saying, but at least it'll give like a couple of years of exciting basketball with maybe Scotty playing the point forward. He might not be at the 1, but he can play like the point forward role. And because Zach LaVine's size, he could be at the 1. Like, just imagine like Zach at the 1, OG at the 2, Scotty at the 3,
Zach LaVine's
Pascal
not
at
a
the
1
4,
though.
and
He's
then
not a point guard. He's like a playmaking 2-3. Like, he's not a point guard. I don't understand where you're getting this
like
from.
you can't imagine like a combo
Lonzo,
guard with the facilitating small forward is what I'm getting
bro,
at.
Lonzo
Like
was the point guard. Lonzo was the point guard. Io's been the point guard. DeMar's played point forward. Where are you getting Zach LaVine as the point guard for Chicago? He's never really played
I'm not
full-time
talking
point
about
guard.
Chicago. I'm talking about him being a point, like a combo guard at the point position, while Scotty Barnes facilitates from the 3 and has like the main on ball.
So where's OG in all of this? OG's
Uh,
playing 2?
yeah, I would put him at the 2. So Zach at the 1, OG at the 2, Scotty at the 3, but he's more so the point guard, but playing at the 3 because of his size. Pascal at
Yeah,
the 4,
I
Pirtle at the
don't see
5.
it. Yeah, I just don't see it, and honestly, I just don't think, you know, I could be wrong, but I don't think Zach LaVine is necessarily the type of player that this team needs. I don't think he's the type of leader this team needs. Solid player, really exciting to watch, really good for a few highlights. I get the fantasy hype. I get, you know, the highlights and all that stuff, but I'm sorry, just the defense is such an important thing. Leadership, intangibles, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Nah,
Well, when you
I
have
just don't
4
see
other
it.
great defensive players, I feel like
You
Pascal is
don't have
actually.
4 other great defensive players. Pascal's not a great defender. Scotty's not a great defender either. So you don't have 4 other great defenders. You have 1 other great defender, which is OG Anunoby. He's the only great defender on this team. The only thing that's close to a great defender on this team other than OG is like Jakob Poeltl and Christian Koloko. That's it.
I would
Everyone
say
else is
Jakob
good.
is probably above average. I would say Pascal is average to slightly above average. Scotty is tenacious and will have the capability and has it right now
All
to
fair.
be.
None of those are great, though.
Yeah,
Saying is
and
someone
all
is
I'm trying
above
to say is
average
that
is great, but like,
I don't want this to move the needle to become like a championship team right now. I just want something fun, which and that core together is actually not that bad. And
yeah.
in the
I
meantime,
mean,
we can try and acquire some more assets.
you can't really acquire assets when you get capped out with a $40 million contract like Zach LaVine that moves up to 49 million. You gotta look at the team building element of this.
Yeah,
Taking
I
on
feel
a
like that's just
contract like
some
that
place where we
really
disagree.
handicaps you. Pardon?
I just feel like that's somewhere we disagree, like on the
I mean, we're free
contract.
to disagree, but this is
In the
not
next
really
like
this is
in next 3 to 4 years, that contract is going to be nothing in terms of what All Stars are getting. So that's going to be really very easy to move, especially when it's an expiring contract. That's going to be very very persuasive for other teams.
I mean, there's already numbers on what those cap numbers are going to be. I mean, if you're expecting like a $250 million cap where Zach LaVine's contract is going to make sense, there's not going to be any situation where Zach LaVine's going to be underpaid at any point in the next 3 years. I guarantee it. Anyways, man, thanks a lot for calling in. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Cheers.
absolutely.
All right. And with that, we call it a night. And yeah. Okay. I'm going to share some thoughts. We're closing in on almost 2 hours. To those of you, some of you know, I spent the last month of my life like color grading, editing, and all that stuff. And at the screening, I was like sitting in the back row, like trying not to die because I was seeing all the mistakes that I didn't have time to fix. And I guess I wanted to share something. This is kind of like broader, unsolicited life advice for anybody out there who's trying to do anything that makes them happy. Because for me, it's like I split my life between 4 things. Number 1, Pensar basketball. Number 2, Pendance Film Festival. Number 3, my own films, being a cinematographer, being a director. And then number 4, just being a human being, being a human being in this world, God and my friends and my family. So this is like the 4 sides, and then occasionally I go to the gym and maybe I'll get back into that hopefully in the next month. So my back is no longer a pretzel from all this editing. But yeah, that's sort of my life. And I got to tell you, like, after the screening, I was very critical of myself, and people got kind of upset with me. And they were just like, why are you apologizing? Why are you apologizing? This film is so good. This film was so good. I'm not trying to mock anybody who likes the film, right? Like it's not a bad film. And I'm happy that people liked it. And I'm happy that it connected with people and it's great. I'm happy. Yeah, like what the fuck? Like I'm not like you want me to be like happier that they didn't like it and be like just so I can be miserable. No, I'm happy that people liked it. I'm happy that Rob's family connected with it and stuff. But yo, I gotta fix what I gotta fix. I see things differently than other people. I'm seeing things that I didn't have a chance to fix because we ran out of time. And so I'm sitting there at the coffee shop afterwards, and sorry, not coffee shop, at the bar afterwards. And we're having a beer and stuff, and we're talking, and I started talking about things I wanted to fix. And people are like, yo, you need to let it go. You need to let this go. You need to let that go. It's good enough. Blah, 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 blah. And I got to tell you, it just started to get so mad inside my head. I was just like getting so pissed off. And so I told my friend the next day, and I was just like, yo, like, how do you deal with this? Because it's like every single time I'm trying to like fix something and people tell me to stop and people telling me not to pay attention to this. No one's going to notice this. No one's going to notice that, but I'm noticing it. How do you deal with that? And he's like, well, what does your gut tell you? And I said, my gut is telling me that I got shit to fix because I got to submit this to Slam Dance Film Festival on the 29th and I got some work to do. And he's like, then the fuck you messaging me for, my boy? Get to work. You need people like that in your life. You know what I mean? You need people like that in your life. So I guess what I'm saying is if I had listened to the people who told me it was good enough and that it was never going to get better and that no one's going to notice this, no one's going to notice that, I would have stopped years ago. But I didn't. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is set your own standards for yourself, man. If you're not happy with your standards, raise your standards. If you're not happy with your job, don't listen to people saying like, oh, you should be happy making this much money. If you're not happy with how much you're making, then make more money. And if you're not happy with who you're with, then don't listen to anybody being like, yo, at least you got a girl. No, leave. Like, I think you should feel free to upgrade is what I'm trying to say in your life. And you should not live life to the standards that other people are trying to set for you. You know what I mean? Like set your own standards, live to your standards so that you can sleep happy. And I am definitely doing that. Like I don't give a fuck what anybody else says. They liked it, didn't like it, whatever. It's nice to hear. It's nice to get that feedback. It's good to, to process it and to hear what people are saying. Hey, the driving scene was slow. The fight scene was good. La la la. I like it. I like hearing all of that. That's great. But it's informing. It's not deciding. I got to make a decision. Color needs more work. This sequence needs more work. That sequence needs more work. Do it for you, So anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm happy with how the screening went. Film's going to get a lot better. I hope, like it'll come to theaters in Toronto and I can tell y'all to go watch it and stuff. And, I hope it'll connect. I hope it'll find an audience. Yeah. Also, I got a really cool zombie film that I'm shooting on October 7th, 8th, 9th. And that's going to be really cool. And I got hired for that. last week, and I'm really excited for that. So that 3-day period, if there's anything Raptors related, I'm not gonna be able to do a live. But other than that, as of October 11th, 10th, 11th, I should be like clear of film stuff. And then you'll probably have me back on lives until about February, and then Pendown starts. So I'm sorry, I gotta split my 3 lives, but it's gonna be yeah. You are a star in your own show right now. Congrats for the film. Thank you. Why trade picks for Jrue? Raptors can't afford any more stupid moves to dump their picks. Raptors cannot afford to dump picks. I fully agree. You know, in the next CBA, like the picks are going to be super, super like important. And the Raptors are really good at drafting, right? As we've seen with OG, Pascal, like Scotty, like they're good at drafting. So they need to keep these draft picks. They're worth a lot more to them than they are to anybody else. Anyway, have a good night, y'all. I am back to editing, and I'll catch you guys in a few days. All right, peace. Bye. Oh, and make sure to hit like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And also to timeline, I noticed my tone going a little bit more to the rude side because you kept insisting on Zach LaVine being really good. I just don't agree. So maybe I'll think about a nicer way to say Zach LaVine is not as good as you think he is without, you know, the attitude. But yeah, I'm trying to keep these like a little bit more, I don't know, I'm trying to be a little less of an asshole this year. We'll see how long it lasts. We'll see how good it gets. But yeah, like I'm trying. Like, I mean, I think last year was like pretty routine. Like once every 3 or 4 lives, or maybe once every 2 or 3 lives, there's always one person who was like, Kyle Kuzma. And I was just like, motherfucker. I think that just needs to stop. It's sports. It's not that serious. But yeah, anyway, I don't want Zach LaVine on this team. I just want to throw that out there into the ether. I don't know who needs to hear it. Does God need to hear it? I don't know who needs to hear it, but I just. Hey, that's good. Elio, thank you. Is it Ijo? Sorry, I don't know why I read Elio. It's a Yugoslavian name, Elio. Anyways, I'm glad I'm getting better. Maybe by next year I'll be like a nice person or something. Anyways, peace, guys. Make sure to hit subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Peace. Good night.